Hi, everyone. How are you doing tonight? You guys got started early in the chat this evening. Sorry about that. Looks like we've got Virginia in the chat tonight. Thank you for being here, Virginia. I really appreciate it. And JR, who is helping to moderate. Thank you, JR. I appreciate your help as well. And Patricia, thank you for being here tonight. And Jim King, thank you for joining us tonight in the chat. I really appreciate you being here. It's actually Joanne, sorry about that, in Delaware. Thank you for being here. And Tiff is here, Original Six. Thank you, Tiff. And Dixieland Homestead, glad to see you back in the chat tonight. And of course, we can't forget Rob over at the Curmudgeon Inn. I so appreciate you being here and to help to moderate once again. And hello, Weed Eater. How are you doing tonight? Weed Eater says, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Always remember our fallen brothers and sisters on this Memorial Day. Yes, thank you very much for that reminder that today is Memorial Day and that today represents those that have fallen before us to keep our freedoms and our peace here on the homeland. So thank you for that, Weed Eater. And hi, Ashley. How are you doing tonight? Hello, hello. And Nanny Goat Acres as well. Thank you for being here. Nanny Goat says, hi, y'all, from Northeast Texas. Thank you for being here. And let's see here. We're just going through some greetings here. Weed Eater says, doing well to Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn, who just said hello to Weed Eater and Ashley and Nanny Goat Acres, and says, getting packed up for a trip to Kennecott this week. Hope y'all are doing well. Well, we hope you're doing well as also Weed Eater, and we hope that you have a very safe trip into Kennecott. And hello, Patty Roberts. How are you doing tonight? Patty says, hello, Miss Alone from Pennsylvania. Hope you're well. Temperature here is 76 degrees at 9 p.m. Very unusual. Trying to keep the garden watered daily. No rain for a week. Have a good night. Well, the temperatures here are about 50 degrees outside right now, but it is rather cold. It's been overcast for the last week and rain hit and miss, but the winds are up and the winds have a bit of a chill to them. So even though it's 50 by the temperature, it's a little bit cooler by the winds. And Nanny Goat says that she canned tomatoes today, small batch, but too many to eat all at once. Picking every day, just about. Wow, that's a lot of tomatoes. That's good though that you have so many that are producing and that you're able to put them up for the coming months as well. Hi, LJ. How you doing tonight? LJ says, hi, Alone and friends. Hope the weather is getting warmer in Alaska. Hugs and kisses. Well, same to you. Hope the weather's doing good where you're at. And sorry for the noise. That's Kenai who just tripped over his dinner bowl. And Nanny Goat says, it's 68 where I live in the Southwest. And let's see here, got more greetings going on. And hello, Julianne. Avery, how are you doing tonight from Central New York? Glad to see you here tonight. And hello, Brun. How you doing? Brun Free is in the house, everyone. And Brun says, a huge hello and big smile and happy to see you again. Hope things are just going well for everyone. Well, we hope the same for you, Brun. Really appreciate you being here. And Bren says she missed everyone. Been really busy. Busy is good. Keeps us all out of trouble, in my opinion. That's how I look at it. And Julianne says, still no rain, maybe next week sometime. Well, hopefully the weather will come your way with some moisture and give you some alleviation from the drought you're experiencing there. And Rob says, ooh, come on now, Brun. You have just been laying around with those cats of yours. We see all your clips. Yes, Bren has some really cute clips of her mousers trying to catch some furry friends on their porch. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they've been very successful at catching the one that's playing a game of cat and mouse with them, but they are very cute nonetheless. Hi, Linda. How are you doing tonight? Linda says, hi, everyone. Remember our fallen heroes this Memorial Day. US. I'm here for a little while, waiting on hubby to come home from work, and we'll cook him a yummy dinner for him. Awesome. That sounds like a nice thing to do for a man who's worked all day. And I agree with you. Let's once again, thoughts out to everyone that has veterans in their family, whether they are with us today or not. Thank them for their service and their time. And hello, Patty Roberts. How are you doing? Appreciate you being here. Bren says, yeah, But no, I've been exploring and doing fun things and metal detecting and cooking. You know how it gets. Bren is very busy, it sounds like, with lots of fun activities. Rob says, yes, I do. I am waiting or I'm wanting to get a detector. I would love to get a metal detector too. I think that would be awesome, especially up here because there is, the prevalence of gold in Alaska. I think it would be awesome to scout along some of the riverbanks with a metal detector and see if I can find even just a little bit. Um, Bren is saying, I hope you do. And then strike gold. It's a lot of fun. Great minds think alike. Rob says he has found gold here, but he was panning during that episode. And Patty, thank you for reminding everyone to give a thumbs up. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me when you guys like the chat and the videos. Bren says, wow, that's great. I've never panned, but I've practiced swishing water about when I was doing dishes. That's about how I feel I would do with it, is just about the same, probably have the same results. We finished tearing down the old greenhouse, Rob over the curmudgeon, and says, next sunny or non-rainy day, we start the coop. Well, that's awesome. Ashley says to Rob, then I'll have to come up with something else to give you a hard time about. And JR says to Rob to make sure you only put in no more than 2 doors in that coop. And Bren is saying, I hope you show us the coop project. I am sure that Rob will have a video about that and bring us all along for his adventures. Julianne says, anytime Bren Free, you want to practice swishing those pans, I'm sure you can get people who will volunteer theirs. Lol. Yes, you're more than welcome to come over here, Bren, and help swish some dishes. I have plenty stacking up in the kitchen today. And Rob says, I will. I filmed the dismantling of the old greenhouse and finished that part. I'm glad people are getting their gardens in. That's what I've been working on this weekend, but I hit a snag, which I'll talk about in either this week's video or an upcoming one. Yeah, I haven't quite overcome the snag yet. I got my thinking cap on about how to deal with the situation that I've run into with my garden. So yikes. And Rob says, cooking up spuds, leftover smoked turkey, and fresh fiddleheads. Yummy. Ashley says that Rob is making him hungry or her hungry. Sorry, Ashley, making her hungry for the fiddleheads. And Alaska Cut the Cord is in the house. How are you doing tonight? So Adam and Phyllis say, hello, everyone. For once, I'm first on before Phyllis. And Bren says, wondering what Alone will be cooking up next. Well, if I ever get around to it, I'll be showing you the crab bisque video. I do have it all filmed. It's just that it's more involved than most of my videos, so it's taking a little bit longer to edit it all together and not have it run on for so long because there are more steps in it than most of my recipes. And let's see here. Hi, Ira. Ira's here tonight. Ira says, greetings, Alone and everyone. Hope you all had a great Memorial Day. The same to you, Ira. I hope you and your mom are doing well. Adam over at Alaska Cut the Cord says, we just had the most awesome time floating the Willow Creek. That's awesome. Fishing is still really slow, in case you wondered. Well, that's good to know, too. I was planning on doing some fishing here on this side of the state coming up, but I haven't had a chance to get out yet to do it. So, and I haven't heard that the fish have made it up to the Copper River just yet. Bren says, hello, Ira. Nice to see your name again. Hope you and your mom are good. And Rob's asking Adam if they use the new raft. Weed Eater says, good afternoon, Alone and Kenai. Hope your day is going well. The day is going just fine, Weed Eater. Thank you for asking. And hello, Clint from East Texas. How are you doing tonight? So glad you could be here. Looking forward to all your humor coming along with you tonight. And hello, Tammy Kelso. How are you doing from Alabama? So glad you could join us in the chat. And same to you, Shelly. Shelly is joining us from East Texas tonight. And of course, we have our friend Jim in Alaska. Jim says, how's the weather over there? Cool here. Not many bugs yet. Getting a skid steer, lined up for a drive and a pad. That's awesome at your new property, Jim. So wonderful. The weather here is cool, just like you're experiencing, but the bugs are out. The flies and the mosquitoes are definitely out and about over here. Hello, Jean Holiday. How you doing from Kentucky? So glad you could be here. And Evelyn, how are you doing tonight from Illinois? So glad you could join us in the chat. Glad to see you in the chat tonight. Paul Davis, how are you doing? Paul says, good evening alone and community. JR is saying that it's 6 p.m. and still 87 degrees where he's at. Yuck. Yeah, that's way too warm for my liking. Rob is asking Alaska Cut the Cord to let him know when to bring his fishing pole. And hello, Sarah. How you doing tonight? I'm so glad you could be here. Sarah is the other half of the Curmudgeon Inn. So glad to see you both here tonight. And hello, Wayne Sperlin. Wayne says, best regards from Denver, North Carolina. God bless the veterans and others who served. Agreed. Hello, Yvonne Marie. How you doing tonight from Alberta, Canada? And Lonnie Poe says, with mosquitoes. Yes, go fishing with the mosquitoes. They're large enough I could probably use them for bait without having to use a fly. Hello, Irene. How you doing tonight from New Jersey? And Donna Heaton, so glad you could be here. Donna says, hi, everybody. Hope you're all well. I'm thankful for our past, present, and future servicemen and women. God bless you all. Agreed. And hello, Pauline Parker. How you doing from Mariston, Florida? So glad you could join us. And JR says, yes, winds, no skeeters. Well, when the winds die down, though, they're out in force. Trust me. I went out earlier and I didn't have the mosquito netting on, and I'm sure you can see I've got a mosquito bite right here on my cheek. So they are definitely still out and about despite those winds. They're just hiding in the leaves, waiting for the winds to stop. Ira says, my mom and I enjoyed a great feast today on our new barbecue, including Nathan's hot dogs from my grandfather's brother, Nathan Hanrecker, something marinated cyan chicken. That sounds awesome. I love a good barbecue, that's for sure. Paul Davis says, in the low 50s here for 3 weeks now, a little cool in Tennessee this time of the year. Virginia McCall says, hi, everyone. And my favorite Miss Alone from Balmy, Balmy Gulfport, Mississippi. Well, welcome again, Virginia. I appreciate you being here. And Ira says 23 by Oker, and thankful to all the veterans. Yes, yes. And Jim is saying hi to Ashley. How are you doing? And JR is saying thank you to Donna Hedron. And Pauline is saying hi, Lonnie. Ashley Anderson says way too warm for me, Jim. Other than that, not too bad. And JR is saying hello to Wayne Sperlin. Ira says, no rain at all here in the South Georgia for many weeks. Vegetables, plants are wilting. Oh, no, that's not good. Hi, John. We have John in Alaska joining us tonight. John says, hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing fine. We're so glad that you're here tonight, John, to keep us entertained in the chat. And Virginia says, Annie, did you cook a good Memorial Day dinner? No, I actually haven't eaten dinner yet. I was so busy working outside today that I didn't. So this is my dinner at the moment are these little smoked sausages. But I will cook dinner when we're done with the chat. So let's see here. Hello, Carol Weisenhunt. How are you doing tonight from Alabama? So glad you could join us. And of course, we have our friend Nomi in the house. Gnomestead, Alaska Off-Grid says, I can build a coop faster than Rob with one arm, and I am. Sounds like the challenge is on for the two of you there. Hello, Delia Garcia. How are you doing tonight? So glad you're here. You don't have to worry about being late. I'm just glad you're able to join us. And Rob is saying hello to Nomi. And hello, Susan. How are you doing tonight? So glad you could be here with us. And sourdough. We have 1968 Alaskan sourdough with us and says, still flooding up there? No, the waters have receded, luckily. And the road never got completely washed out, though I did notice the last time I went through Glen Allen that they had some road base down. So they obviously did either have to do some road repair work there or they put some down just due to some surface damage. But luckily, the flooding has receded. Thank goodness. And Nomi saying hi to Rob and to Ashley. And Lonnie Post says, hello from Parkton, Maryland. Warmed up yet? Nope, it's still a little cool outside. I've said before that 50 degrees is about the max temperature that I am comfortable in. And I just checked the thermostat and their thermometer, and it says that it's 50 degrees outside right now. But even though it's 50 degrees outside, those winds are keeping it a little bit nippy outside. I actually have a fire started in the wood stove tonight. Hey, Charles, how you doing tonight? Charles Quick says, hi, Era. Sorry I'm late. I would love to stay, but I have a bunch of bad teeth and on pain pills for pain. So droggy, sorry, and trying to stay awake to listen. Well, do your best to relieve the pain, and I hope it goes away quickly, and hope you're getting in to see a dentist soon. Sorry about all that for you, Charles, but I'm glad you're here just to say hi, if nothing else. And JR even says, been there, no fun, take care. Yes, much take care to you. Charles, you have my sympathy, Ashley says. And Clint is saying hello to the Gnomestead. And Angie R., how you doing tonight from California? So glad you could be here. And Gnomestead and Ashley are saying hi to Clint. Bren says, hey, Gnomestead, I was walking by a house here in Australia and I saw you in their garden on the porch. It was a garden gnome, so I thought of you and smiled. Connie Lip, how are you doing tonight? Connie says, good evening from Arizona, where it's 98 degrees. Woo, that's warm. And summer is yet to really kick in. JR says to Connie, you win with the high temp award so far. Yes. Oh my goodness, 98. Ira says, thanks for the good wishes to my mom, Lorraine. Her eyes lit up when I told her Sunday, June 4th, she will turn 93. I ordered a Black Forest cake from a Hungarian German baker. Well, that sounds delicious. And congratulations on 93 years. Lorraine, we appreciate you watching, and I appreciate all the time and effort that you take to sit with me on Monday nights. So thank you, Ira, and I wish you the happiest birthday ever, and many more to come, too. Delia Garcia says, hi, Alone. I'm watching you on YouTube, on TV, and my cell phone so I can text you. Well, that's a way to get those views up. Thank you, Delia. I appreciate that. And hello, LaRue. How you doing tonight? LaRue is joining us from Iowa. So glad to have you here. And Danny, you as well from Central Florida. Thank you for being here. And Gnomestead says, that's dedication, Dahlia. I agree. Rob says, sorry, was tending dinner. I'm back for a few minutes. Nomi, you did not have to tear down a structure or wait for a delivery via the railroad to build your coop. Oh my goodness, the competition is on. Hello, Big T. How are you doing tonight? Big T from Rustic Log Cabin Life says, good afternoon. My uncle was a drill sergeant in the Army for 15 years during the Vietnam era. Wow, that is a long time to be a drill sergeant. I have a family that was in the military for nearly a full 20 years themselves. And so I know how much dedication that takes to do term after term like that. And I just learned today that that Memorial Day was actually became Memorial Day in 1971, but it was actually instilled in the 1800s as a Decoration Day. And then it got switched over to Memorial Day in the 1970s. So it's been a holiday for quite some time. And, you know, my thanks goes back way before the Vietnam War, the Korean War, World War II, World War I, and even the Civil War. So I just want to, say thank you to those out there that can hear me in the afterlife, saying thank you for your service that brought about this country as well. And hello, Beachcomber. How you doing? Beachcomber says hello from New Zealand to all the Alone family. We have a nice fine day here after weeks of weather bombs, cyclones, and torrential rain. Oh my goodness. You've had quite the week of weather there. Hopefully it all settles down and you're able to have some peace and quiet there in New Zealand. Irene says, thank you for acknowledging, for the acknowledgement as a veteran. We all serve for the love of our country. God bless you all. Well, thank you very much, Irene, for your service. We really appreciate you and your fellow servicemen and women. And Rob is saying hello to Rustic Log Cabin Life and John in Alaska. And Nomstead says, okay, then, Rob, now your building is down. No excuses. Chop, chop. And Alaska Cut the Cord says, don't forget to hit that like button. Thank you very much for that, Adam. I appreciate it. And Ashley is laughing at Nomi. And hello, Sozi. How you doing tonight? Sozi says, I hope you're doing well on this Memorial Day. I am, and I hope the same for you. And I appreciate you joining us tonight. Rob says he's actually going to start that chicken coop tomorrow. Hello, Oliver Jackson. How you doing tonight? Oliver says, hello, alone and all, from where it is 75 degrees and raining in Texas. Well, at least you got some rain there. Maybe you could send some up to New York for our friends up there. And thank you for being here also, Oliver. And Rob says, okay, everyone, give her up some more thumbs up. Thank you for that, Rob. I appreciate it. And Nomstead says, Rob and Nomi is like tortoise and the hare race on getting that coop built. And John is reminding me the MS is Missouri and not Mississippi. Thank you for that. Yeah, sometimes, but I do appreciate it. And Matt says, howdy fam, got the Braves on one screen and Miss Alone on the other. Now I just need another set of eyes, right? And ears so you can pay attention to the score and everything going on as well. Oh my goodness. But thank you for putting me on the screen nonetheless, Matt. I appreciate it. And hello, Mike G, who says Hong Kong. So glad you could be here. And Shane Liddell, thank you for being here this night from Rimrock, Arizona. So glad you could join us. And Ashley is saying hi to Matt, and Matt saying hello back. And hello, Dawn. How are you doing tonight from Maine? So happy to have you with us. And Amanda Smith says, I will round out the rest of Southern USA. Hello from Georgia. Thank you for being here, Amanda Smith. I appreciate it. Danny says, I put up 12 pints of elderberry syrup today. Still have purple hands. Lol, I bet. But I bet you're so happy to have all that elderberry syrup up. And 12 pints is a lot. That's a lot. That's so awesome that you were able to collect that much. Jim in Alaska says, everybody tell us how you served. Air Force here. Well, thank you for your service, Jim. I really appreciate it. And Nomi says, Danny, that sounds yummy. And we have Dogman in the house. Thank you, Dogman, for being here tonight. Dogman says, hello, folks. Just popping in for a minute. The weather is too nice to be inside. Well, enjoy the weather while you got it, Dogman. I really appreciate you being here nonetheless, even if it is just for a moment. And Ira says, this is such a great group of people. My mom and I are so happy to be in the room with everyone. We do not have many friends in Georgia. Well, you have friends amongst us, and we're always happy to see you in the chat, Ira, and also to your mom. So thank you for being here. And Julianne says, hi, Nomi, chicken coop in under an hour, the power of editing. Loved your coop building. Yes, it's amazing how much we can get done with the magic of YouTube. And JR says, Air Force here. So again, JR, thank you for your service. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone else does as well. And here is John in Alaska's channel link for everybody. Please be sure to check out John's channel and make sure that he knows that Alone sent you. And Bren says, well, Ira, you've got a friend now in Australia. So tell everyone in Georgia. You got friends in Alaska and Georgia Australia and all over the world thanks to this. And Irene says, so MS is not Missouri. MO is Missouri, lol. Oh my goodness. I was wondering about that when he said it. I was thinking, well, then what is Mississippi? I couldn't come up with because I know there isn't a MP for abbreviation for a state. So thank you, Irene. We both learned something new tonight. And Nomi is saying thanks to Ira. And Mary Beth Tanner, how are you doing tonight? Thank you for being here. Mary Beth says hello. And Mike G says, did 25 years in the Canadian military, Hong Kong. Well, thank you for your service there as well, because you protect our borders as we protect yours, and we appreciate both. So thank you for that. And 223 DMR says hello from Missouri. Well, hello. Thank you for being here. Delia Garcia says, thanks, Nomstead. By chance, do you have a shorter name, lol? I tried to get you on YouTube, but yeah, we should put up Nomi's. There we go. Here is Nomi's channel link for you, Delia. There you go, so that you can get to his channel right from there. And Janice Lala says, Also, Missouri is MO and Mississippi is MS. And Nomi said that that works for Ira. Nomi works Ira. I'm not, I didn't quite follow that. 14 years in the U.S. Army, Dogman served. Well, thank you for your service, Dogman. Much appreciated. And Bren, there is Bren's channel link. Thank you, Rob, for putting that up for everybody. And hello, Tammy Schaefer. How are you doing from Illinois? So glad you could be here. And also Mary Rizzo from Phoenix, Arizona. So happy to have you here with us tonight. Delia says, yes, Ira, we are all friendly. Yes, thank heavens. I have such a good group of people here with me tonight. I appreciate all of you. And Jim in Alaska says, 223 DMR, what part of Missouri are you from? Southwest Missouri for me. And Brent says, left school at 18, served in the Australian Army 6 years, then police force, now retired. Well, thank you for your service in Australia and as a police officer there as well. Much appreciated. And Groovy Moose Cabin in Alaska says, hello alone. Hope all is well with you and Kenai. Well, thank you. We appreciate you being here tonight. And I hope all is well with you as well. And Rob is saying hello to you as well. And John is saying, my bad. Yeah, we both got confused there, John. It's all good. Happens to the best of us. And hello, Sanity Fair. How are you doing tonight? Sandy says, hi, y'all. Looking forward to my Alaska trip in July to Cooper Landing. Well, congratulations on getting your trip up here in July. I hope it all goes well. And we're excited for you to make it here as well. And I'm sure Cooper Landing is also. And Paul Davis says, hello to JR. My sister was a missile crew chief in Kansas. Well, thank her for her service from us or for it from us. Maybe I should have eaten a few more of those smoked meats before starting this. Low blood sugar, I'm telling you. Naomi says, have fun, Sanity. Is this your first trip up to Alaska? And Clint says, I joined the Army, but I only spent 1 month at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and was sent home. Even as a young man, I had bad feet. Oh, well, that's unfortunate, but at least you tried. We give you credit for that, for at least you made it in and you gave it your best, even if they did send you home. Hello, Beverly. How are you doing tonight? Beverly says, we have several vets and past vets from World War II. My oldest grandson was just received his Navy commission as he graduated from Virginia Military Institute with honors, chilly and raining in West Virginia. Well, thank you for your family member service, and we appreciate all of them, and we appreciate you being here tonight. And I'm right there with you with chilly and rainy weather here. Iris says, thank you, everyone, for your kindness. You're most welcome. And Rob has put up Jim in Alaska's channel link for everybody. Be sure to check out Jim's channel. Nomstead says, Clint, they didn't want you stealing the gold. And Evan, how are you doing tonight? Evan says, caught up on your videos this afternoon. The burnt orange paint looks splendid in the kitchen. Great choice. Well, thank you, Evan. I appreciate it. And I do really like how the kitchen is turning out. There's still more to do in there. I feel like it's one of the projects that's just taking its time in getting finished. But once it's said and done, I am sure it's going to look exactly as I have it pictured in my mind. But there is more to be done there. But thank you for being here tonight and for the compliment. JR says to Paul Davis, aircraft crew chief and B-52 bomb loader. Wow, that's quite the job there, being a bomb loader. Jim in Alaska says, Sanity, are you doing a fishing trip? And Paul Davis says, United States Army here. Well, thank you for your service, Paul. We appreciate you. And John in Alaska says, years in the U.S. Navy, 5 tours in Vietnam. Wow, that's a lot, John. And we thank you again for your service. Greatly appreciated. And Clint is laughing at JR's, or I'm sorry, at Nomi's joke about stealing the gold. Gunpowder Beauty. Hey, y'all. How are you doing tonight, Gunpowder? We're so glad you could be here. And Rob is saying hello to Gunpowder. John in Alaska says 6 years in the U.S. Navy and 5 tours in Vietnam. Yeah, I wondered what you meant with the up arrow. I should have looked down at the keyboard and seen. But yes, thank you for your service, John. We appreciate all of the years that you spent in the service and all that you did for our country. And Bill from Alaska's Last Frontier is here. Thank you for being here tonight, Bill. And Bill is reminding everyone to give a thumbs up. Thank you for that, Bill. Appreciate it. Bren says, Alone, will you be taking us for an adventure soon? Maybe hiking or fishing with Kenai? Well, if I go fishing, I probably won't take Kenai with me, unfortunately, because he is a bit of a distraction when you're trying to fish. But I will be taking you on adventure soon. I do have a couple trips planned in the very near future, and I'm planning on bringing you guys along for all of that. So yes, in the coming weeks, there will be a couple of trips coming up in some of my vlogs. And Rob is saying thank you to John Alaska for a service. Hi, Joe. How are you doing tonight? Joe Young is with us. And Joe says, good evening, Annie, and a good night. Have a great week. Loves. Well, hello and goodbye, Joe, if you're leaving the chat early tonight. But thank you for popping in nonetheless. And if you're not, I look forward to some more chats from you. Either way, please take care. And I'll see you again on the next one, if not later tonight throughout the chat. And Clint says hello to John in Alaska. And let's see here. JR says, I have the rifle my great grandfather had in the Army in the 1890s and it still works. That's awesome. That's quite the treasure to have too. Our Simple Life is in the house. This is formerly Rutherford Roaming. So thank you for being here, Angie and David. Appreciate it. Angie and David say hello all, and we say hello back to you. So glad you could be here. And Bill is also saying hello to Our Simple Life. Sanity Fair says, my 4th trip, first time fishing. Well, let's hope you catch a big one. And I'm so happy you've been up here before. You're like me. Once you see it, you just can't let go of it. Alaska is a beautiful place. And there is Rob's channel link for everybody. Be sure to check out Rob's channel over at the Curmudgeon Inn and thank him for his time moderating. And John is saying thanks to Rob. And Num says, hi, Dee Ho, Our Simple Life, aka the Rutherfords. And Rob is also saying hello. And Clint says to JR, cool, just think of all the stories it could tell if it could speak, right? That gun has been around for quite some time. I'm sure it's seen some action in its day. And Jim in Alaska says, thanks, Rob. Wasn't sure what that meant. Lol. Such a computer whiz I am. I had to try 3 times to get in the military. I had a heart murmur and didn't know it. Finally, they missed it. Lol. Wow, you were determined. Thank you, Jim, for your determination. And thank you for whoever missed your heart murmur and that it didn't do you in as well. John, JR says to John Alaska, was those years at the Yankee station. And there's Our Simple Life's channel link for everybody. Be sure to check out Angie and David over at their channel. And John says to JR, yes, and up the rivers. Delia Garcia says, thank you, John, for fighting for our country. Judy K says, just found your channel. I'm here from outside of Boise, Idaho. Beautiful 80 degrees. I love Boise and the surrounding area. Idaho is beautiful. So thank you for being here tonight with us, Judy. We appreciate you joining the chat. And John Alaska says hi to Bill at Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead. And Nomi is saying hi to Judy, as is Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn. Jim in Alaska says, my dad landed on the Omaha beach on D-Day, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, and other awards. Never said a word about it. Wow. I'm sure your dad had some, stories that he could tell as well. But yeah, sometimes it's one of those things where it's very hard to speak of. JR said, but we appreciate his service nonetheless. That is, Jim, I meant to say. And JR says to John in Alaska, Rivers was like walking in the ghetto with $100 hanging out of your pocket. Yikes. And there is Our Simple Life channel link. So be sure to check them out. And there's Alaska's Last Frontiers channel link as well. So we'll go over and say hi to Bill while you're at it. And Danny is laughing, or she's correcting me because I always read lol out as the anagram as opposed to saying that it means laughter out loud or laughing out loud. You need to hang out with the teenager. That's the problem is I did hang out with teenagers, but I just read the anagrams. Other than the TMI. Well, even though I guess I do, I still say TMI as opposed to too much information. So I think the only one that I get spoken out is when the OMG for oh my God. Other than that, yeah, I'm guilty of just reading the anagrams. And Judy says, hello, everyone. Thanks for the welcome. You're welcome, Judy. Thank you for being here. And Clint says, question, Have you captured any cool critters on the trail camps? Well, I'm only pulling the cards about once a week. And last week, I only caught the tail end of a moose as he ran by and another moose that was standing there overnight, grazing on some of the saplings. But other than that, I haven't seen anything else on the trail cams yet. But I plan on clearing the saplings in the backyard, and maybe I'll see more things come through with the back of that area right there in front of the trail cam being opened up a little bit more. And Jer is asking John Alaska, or saying, only had one tour in Da Nang. Well, thank you for your service over there in Vietnam, Jer. We appreciate it. And Alaska's Cut the Cords channel link is there for everybody. Thank you for putting that up there, Rob. And John is saying you're welcome to Delia. And Chris Watson is in the house. Everybody say hello, Chris. Chris says present. 5 years in the U.S. Air Force, Texas, Alaska, Korea, and Idaho. 15 years. A&G, I'm not sure what A&G stands for, sorry. Idaho, Virginia, Kuwait, and 2 times 2, and then Maryland, Saudi Arabia, Iraq times 2, Israel, United Arabic Emirates, sorry, times 2, Red Horse, and Dirt Boy for life. Well, thank you for your service, Chris. We really appreciate it, and you spent a lot of time in the service, and you saw a lot of places. Wow, that's a lot. But thank you very much for all you did for our country. We appreciate you, Chris. And Susan P. is here and says, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Susan, for being here. Patricia says to Jim in Alaska, Dad also had medals and never spoke about it. We found out when he passed away. Oh, so sad. But we thank him for his service, Patricia. Sorry, every time you guys say that, my mind is just going back to the things that they may have experienced and the traumas or the events that may have caused them to not speak of it again in the future. So my heart goes out to everybody. And Bill has put up John in Alaska's channel link for everybody. Please go over and check out John's channel when you get a chance. And Bren says, alone, have you still got water everywhere? Is your car still covered in mud? My car is still covered in mud. I did not get a chance to run it through a car wash just yet, but the water has receded on the property and things are starting to dry up outside, which is nice, but the ground is still really soft. When I'm walking on it, I'm still leaving impressions of my boot as I walk along. So hasn't quite dried up just yet. And I think that I'll be having the driveway tended to, I think, in a couple of weeks. I'm not exactly sure. I need to price out the driveway fabric still before that's going to happen, but it's coming up soon that the driveway is going to get tended to, and it needs to, because right now I can't park in front of the cabin. JR says those that brag about medals usually didn't have them. Yeah, probably so. You don't get them for happy times, that's for sure. And Delia says to John in Alaska, okay, I will check you out, John. And Jim is saying to Patricia, same here. And Chris Watson says, thanks for the tribute earlier. I almost completed this day without tears. Almost. I'm sorry, Chris, but I do want to thank you for your service. And I definitely had you in mind because I know you and I have talked about your service before. And yeah, it means a lot to me, all the time that and effort that everyone puts into protecting our country and our freedoms. And Patricia is saying good evening to Rob over at the Curmudgeon Inn. And JR says to Chris, quite the tours: Texas, California, Vietnam, California, Guam, and Texas. Wow, you guys put in a lot of time in a lot of places. And Alaska's Last Frontier has put up Jim and Alaska's channel link. Thank you for doing that, Bill. I appreciate it. And hello, Ernie. Ernie's here from Ernie's Cabin. Hello, everyone. Thanks to all who kept the world a safer place to live. Yes, yes. And Delia says, yes, thank you, Chris. Jim Alaska says, wonder how hard it would be to have Alaska YouTube people to have a get together. I mean, with 366 subs, I'm a powerhouse on the tube, lol. Well, Jim, I'm not sure if Bill has reached out to you yet or not, but for everyone here tonight, if you haven't seen my last video, I do want to let everybody know that you're cordially invited to attend the first annual YouTuber Rondi in Alaska. It's going to take place in Willow, Alaska. And Bill over at Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead, as well as Nomi over at Nomestead Alaska Off Grid, can give you all the details on all the events that are going to take place. But there's a handful of YouTubers that are going to be there. And Jim, if you would like to be there, I'm sure they have already reached out to you. But just in case they haven't, I'm sure that they would be more than happy to have you attend as well. And Urban Bucket Homestead, how are you doing tonight? So glad you could be here. It says hello, Alone and everyone from Northern Utah. Hello to you as well. And JR says mud on the vehicle helps hold the rust together. I am guilty of not washing my vehicles. I know it's bad for the finish on the vehicles, but honestly, no more dirt can get to it if it's already covered. That's how I look at it. Paul Davis says, greetings, Jim and Jim in Alaska. My stepfather was a 454 troop carrier squadron, but volunteered for the Glider Pilot 3 mission. I remarkably made it out alive. Normandy, Holland, and Bastogne. Well, thank you. And thank your stepfather for his service. Would greatly appreciate that. And Rob says, my grandfather never talked about World War II until just before he passed. I was given all of his medals. I keep one with me 90% of the time. Wow. Well, thank your grandfather, even though I'm sure he's long gone, since you mentioned he passed, for his service as well. And Onto It Aussie says, good morning, Alone, and hello to everyone. Hello, Onto It Aussie. So glad you could join us in the chat again. And Chris says, with respect, it ain't about the medals. Medals are often empty gestures to service members, often too many memories. Yep, that's my thoughts there as well. And Ashley says, JR, I need more mud. We'll send that rain down your way, Ashley, for sure. Bren says, Alone, how often do you clean and calibrate your guns? And do you practice firing them often? Well, I don't get to practice them as often as I would like. I would love to practice more often, but with the cost of ammo, some of them I'm a little, I would say, what's the word? Hesitant to shoot them because the ammo is so expensive. But I do practice quite frequently and calibrating them. I clean them after almost every firing, especially if I've been out target practicing. But then as far as calibrating them, I calibrate them probably at least once a year, as far as going through and making sure that everything's dialed in the way that it should be. But I need to get better at doing it. So I'm self-taught, which is can sometimes be an issue that I don't necessarily get things dialed in exactly as I should. But I plan on actually taking some classes to help me get better at hunting and at firing. So I can hit my target, but when I was taking my concealed carry course in Colorado, there was a course that I wanted to take before I left that guaranteed you, they had like a money back guarantee that you would be able to hit dead center on your target with every fire after taking their course. I don't know how they were able to do that and offer that money back guarantee, but I did see some of the results of people that were coming out of that course, and it's a 1-day course, and sure enough, they were dead center. So if I could find a course like that up here, I would gladly take it because, well, I'd like to hit someone in the center mass if there were an intruder on my property. I'd also like the opportunity to shoot something smaller that was further away and a moving target and know that I'm going to hit it as well. So great question. Thanks, Bren. And there is Urban Buckets Homestead's channel link. So thank you for putting that up, Rob. And Delia says, thank you, Alone, for reading everyone's text. Take a deep breath now. I know I get a little caught up in reading. There's so many, and I wonder how far behind I actually get sometimes because I get long-winded. And Nomstead says, good question, Bren. You can have 100 guns, but if you don't practice, what good are they? Exactly. That is exactly my point on it. And there is Onto It Aussie's channel link. Thank you for putting that up, Bill. And Urban Bucket says, thank you, everyone who served in the military, and also to anyone that has lost a loved one. Much love. I agree. Well said. And there is Big T's channel link over at Rustic Log Cabin Life. Be sure to check out Big T, who posted a video earlier today as well. And Bill says to Jim in Alaska, I need an email address for you. And Matt says, Urban Bucket Homestead, hello, and also from Northern Utah for the moment, until he gets to Alaska, that is. Jim in Alaska says, since I am not of the computer age, seems strange that I'm watching you live and you're not that far away. How did I miss the get together? Since I will be living in Willow, I bet I can make that one. And says, we would love to have you, Jim. Brent says, Alone, how is your pantry stockpile going? Are you running low or on top of it? Well, I'm doing rather well at the moment because I just did my grocery haul not too long ago. And I was looking at myself in some of the more recent videos, and I can tell that I filled out a little bit since I did the meat haul video back in December. So I would say it's faring fairly well. I do have some plans to get some of the stuff out of the freezer and canned up here because I don't want to leave it in the freezer for too long. And also, um, I'm sure, because I've been running into town, it seems like all the time recently to get things, that I'll be doing some more grocery runs along the way, just filling in gaps here and there. But right now, the grocery pantry is doing just fine. No holes in it as of yet. And uh, there is Bill's email address for Jim over at Jim in Alaska. And Susan says, my dad also never talked about World War II. He was injured and then they made him go back after he healed. Oh, no. And Rob is saying to Bren that ammo can be hard to find at times, especially up here in Alaska. It was hard to find during the last 2 years back in Colorado, or the 2 years prior to me moving up here. But especially up here in Alaska, sometimes you go into the store and they just don't have the ammo that you're looking for. So I have made it a point to stock up every time that I run into town. I grab a box or two where I can afford to. But some of the ammo still I have very limited supply on. And so those guns I tend to shoot less than the others. And JR says, my t-shirt says, Agent Orange killed me in Vietnam. I just haven't died yet. Yep, that's a sad one too. I was watching a thing the other day about the gas masks in World War II and how they stopped using them when they realized that gases weren't really going to be prevalent in the war. And they started filling other things into those canisters to use to carry that would be more useful in the battlefield. So it's unfortunate that gas was used in Vietnam. And Nomstead says, Robin Ashley got another fuzzy tail tree rat today. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Nomi's had quite the issue with invaders in his cabin lately. So be sure to check out Nomi's channel to see everything that's going on there. Jim in Alaska says, Last Frontier, I will private message you off your website, email sent. And Rob is saying, yay to Nomi. John says, is calibrating the same thing as sighting in? In my opinion, yes. I'm hoping that's what Bren meant. But yes, in my opinion, getting my sights dialed in sometimes is hard. Though I did get a new sight. I wish I had the gun sitting here with me, but I don't. I did get a new sight that is much easier to get calibrated than some of my older sights. So I'm anxious to get out and actually hunt with this new gun that I got. And Numi Ashley says, Nomi, what is the total that you have gotten of your little tree rats? And Chris Watson says, we can't forget the contributions of the Aussies in Vietnam and both world wars. And sorry, I can't read anagrams sometimes. I'm just Aussies and New Zealand's, I'm sure, held the line more times than history remembers. ANZACS. Sorry, I'm not familiar with the anagram, and I probably look ignorant at the moment, but I apologize. And I agree, we can't forget our allies in the wars either, because they helped to protect the world. And so we thank everyone for their service, whether you're in America or not. Ernie's Cabin says, are the berry plants in bloom yet? The soap berries are starting to bloom, but and the lingonberries, actually, because I was out walking the property earlier and I did see both of those are starting to bloom. But I don't really have any other berry plants. Well, I have some really short, really short raspberry plants. They are raspberries. They're not cloudberries or anything like that. But they haven't started to bloom as of yet here. And JR says, center of mass is good, but the computer is better. Yep. I agree. And Weed Eater says, Willow Run sounds fun. Yep. I hope you guys can make it up there to the Rondi and meet all your favorite YouTubers. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it or not because I have family that'll be arriving about that same time. And I think they might be arriving the same day as the Rondi. So I'm going to have to check and I'll get back with everybody. But I'll let you know for sure one way or the other. And Nomi is saying he's gotten 7 squirrels so far, and the squirrels have gotten nothing left or nothing more in his cabin, which is good. And Rob is saying to Ernie's cabin, blueberries are starting in his area. That's awesome. And hello, Steve, over at Steve's Woodworking and Homestead. Steve says, hello, everybody. Thank you for being here, Steve. I appreciate it. And Steve is saying hello. And Chris says, JR, I hear you, brother. It's burn pits for me. Oh, my goodness. And let's see here. There is Ernie's YouTube channel link. Thank you for putting that up, Bill. I appreciate it. Everyone be sure to check out Ernie's channel. And Jim says, what do you think of the draw of Alaska? What do you think the draw of Alaska is for us who were not born and raised here? For me, it's freedom. It's about the last place in the U.S. where you can have semblance of freedom. Just leave me alone. Yes, that is what drew me to Alaska, as well as the beauty of Alaska, the scenic beauty, but especially the area in which I live. Since I don't really have a governing body over me, I don't live in a borough, so I don't have council over me or, um, you know, a mayor or anything like that, since I'm not in an actual town. And there's less laws here where I live than there are in even other parts of Alaska. So the freedom is definitely what brought me to Alaska. 100%. I definitely agree with that. And there's Steve's Woodworking and Homesteads channel link. Please be sure to check out Steve when you get a chance. I'm sure he would greatly appreciate that. And JR is saying to Chris, that's some nasty stuff you had there. Oof. And Rob agrees that the freedom is what brings us to Alaska. Ashley says, Jim, that's my plan. Got a couple of years before I can get there. Well, Ashley, we're all patiently waiting for you to get here, but I'm sure you're way more anxious than we are, but we're anxious nonetheless. And JR says to Jim in Alaska, ditto here. Ira says, 2 years ago, my mom and you were, I'm sure she meant say I, were completely stuck on a road in Cotton Country, and I had cell service, but the tow truck was unable to even get through on the road. I thought we would be there for weeks. That's what it can be like if you get stuck here in Alaska. In fact, just recently there were 2 incidences that were quite tragic here in Alaska. Over on the Parks Highway, they found a woman's remains, skeletal remains, who the assumption is that she moved up to Alaska and thought that she could live in a tent. It was a wall tent, is my understanding. I could be wrong on that. But she was living in a tent, and they estimate that she probably starved and then froze to death over winter. And then the other one was a gentleman who had been out fishing with his buddies down in Hope, and he actually wandered out into the mud flats, and the tide came up and he drowned, and they weren't able to retrieve his body until the next morning. So here in Alaska, if you wind up in trouble, it could be a long time before somebody gets to you, especially if you're not near the major towns and cities. Out in Hope, the next nearest town to them is Girdwood, and you know, they really don't have a whole lot in services as well, but it can be at least an hour before they can get to you in Hope. And, here, it could be an hour or better before Hope or services get to you as well. So, if you're not from here, be cautious is the best thing to say. And if you are here, hopefully you do what I do, which is have a daisy chain of people in your area who can hopefully one of them get to you within a matter of minutes, and tend to you and help in any circumstance before emergency services are able to arrive. So, but yeah, I'm glad you were able to get out of there, Ira. But yeah, that can be very dangerous. Hello, Charles. How are you doing tonight? Charles says, what is the knife you have on your pistol belt? Yep, I'm a blade guy. I don't actually know the name of the knife that I have on my belt. It was a gift given to me, and I use it. I'm using it in this current video that I just filmed, but I use it all the time. So the reason it's on there more than self-defense or anything like that, it's on there because I'm always cutting something, twine or a branch or something like that. So, or a package a lot of times. But I will find out what the name of the knife is and I will let you know in a future video, Charles. Maybe this video since I'm using it in the video. But that's a great question. And Brent says, Alone, how often do you need to service vehicles in Alaska with all the cold weather? And is a car service expensive there? The car service can be expensive here. But just like any place, it's best to have it serviced at least annually. Here, I try to do it at least twice a year, especially because of all the miles that I'm putting on the vehicle. Tire rotations, really, if you're running back and forth across the state like I'm doing, then really you need to rotate those tires about every other month, it seems like. And um, my car, I actually need to get it in for service right now. But the problem with it is in the area in which I live, there's only a couple of mechanic shops in the area. And one of them I have been to time and time again, and they have not been able to fix the problem. And I know what the issue is with my car. So I actually have the part to repair my vehicle. I'm actually going to take it to the other mechanic who came highly recommended and see if they can get my vehicle running in tip-top shape. I mean, it's running, it does fine, but it's time to replace the fuel filter, which is something I desperately need to get done because as you're climbing the passes here, it starts to sputter and spit, and it's not fun. I'm always afraid it's going to die on me as I'm going uphill. Luckily, there's hardly anybody behind me when I'm doing that. And Steve says, thank you to all vets. You are my heroes. Yes, I agreed. And JR says, AO is a tactical strength weed grass tree killer sprayed from planes I worked on. Oh no, that's not good. Don't breathe that stuff in. Miranda Smith says, my husband is a disabled veteran, 75 and still working full time. Tribute to you all on the Memorial Day. Well, tribute to your husband as well, Miranda Smith, and thank him for his service. And apologies that he had to be disabled on our behalf. And Jim in Alaska says, Ashley, if we have any questions, if have any questions, let me know. I am not a sourdough, more like a Play-Doh, but I will be glad to tell you all the mistakes I made. Sometimes mistakes are worth more. I agree. I was recently just thinking about all the things I've learned since being here and some of the things I didn't know before moving here. Some of them have a little to do with Alaska. Some of them have a lot to do with Alaska. And Donna says, both of my brothers survived Vietnam, but not without Agent Orange and PTSD. Because of that, they are both suffering all of the side effects. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry to hear that, Donna. My heart, and I'm sure everyone else's heart, goes out to your brothers for sure. And Alaska's Last Frontier says the watermelon berry plants on my property are sprouting, no flowers yet. Yeah, and that's the other thing. The fireweed is starting to sprout outside, which is good to see. Patricia says, hello, here from Kansas. Well, thank you, Patricia, for being here. Clint says, unfortunately, it's about 4,000 miles from me. Alaska is, yeah. Ashley says, Jim agreed. I take help and advice from anyone willing to help. And Nomstead says, pick them and eat them. Bill, watermelon shoots are delicious. Matt says, I'm only 39 and already in the get off my lawn phase of my life. It's too peoply where I live. I know that feeling. And Lonnie Poe says, if someone asks you what would be the first place you visit in Alaska, if someone asks you what would be the first place you visit in Alaska, what would you tell them? Well, the first place is probably the airport or the port that you land in. So it's probably going to be Anchorage or Fairbanks or Seward. But no, seriously, seriously, if you could go anywhere in Alaska, um, ooh, that's a hard one. What I always tell people is my first trip to Alaska, I came up on a cruise ship. And while cruises are a lot of fun and you get to see the coastline of Alaska, unless you take the rail tour that goes, up to Denali and beyond, you don't really get to see the interior of Alaska. So, what I always say is to pick the area of Alaska that you're most interested in, whether it's the south central or the southeast portion of Alaska, like Juneau, or you're more interested in the interior around Fairbanks, Manly Hot Springs, or you're interested in the far north. Find the area that you're interested in, or someplace even like Nome or Dillingham, and then find an outfitter or somebody that has a cabin that you can stay in and that can show you Alaska that way, because then you actually get to meet true Alaskans. You actually get to see the heart of Alaska and what Alaska is all about. Because when you're on the cruises, every port looks the same. By the time you made it to the third port, you're seeing the exact same stores with the exact same items that you saw in the last port, and you realize none of those items are actually from Alaska. They're all from some company elsewhere in the world, maybe China even. And you're not meeting people from Alaska. When I came up here on that cruise, I didn't meet anybody from Alaska. I met people from Colorado and California and Russia and all sorts of places, but not Alaskans. So that would be my best thing, is to figure out where you want to see and find a local who can host you and show you around the state. And Lonnie says, or sorry, I just read Lonnie's comment. Sorry. Chris Watson says, not to hijack the chat, but remember 21 vets take their lives daily. We don't all die on the battleground, but the wars still are killing us. If you are a vet living in the abyss, please reach out. Yes, I agree. There are so many of our soldiers that are not doing well, both mentally and physically, and they need our help. And so, if you know a veteran who needs help, please reach out and help them. Please help them get the assistance that they need. And I know sometimes that's not always easy, because people can sometimes be resistant to the help as well. But thank you, Chris, for that reminder. I greatly appreciate it. And Patricia says, it's 85 here today. Blueberries about ready. Yum. It'll be a while before the blueberries are ready for picking here, but I hope this year that I get to actually go out and pick some wild blueberries. I don't have any on my property, but I know there are some along the road that I live on. So hopefully I'll be able to find someone who's willing to go with me or to watch my back when I go to pick blueberries. And Beachcomber says to Chris Watson, you are right. The Australians did so much frontline work. My dad was in the Middle East for 3 years until wounded. Australians and New Zealanders, which is ANZAC, have always stood side by side. Yes. Thank goodness for that as well. And Norm says, hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a great day. Thank you, Norm, for being here. Appreciate that. And Patricia says, hi, all. Well, hello, Patricia. Thank you for being here. Alaska's Last Frontier says, actually, a truck brought me to Alaska. Well, then you probably saw Tok as your first entrance into Alaska. And Brenda Lee says, "You can you allow closed captions? I'm hard of hearing." Um, yeah, maybe. Let me see if I can do that. I don't know how to do it on here. I'll try to set it up for the next live stream. Give me 1 second. I'll see if I can go in and do that real quick here for everybody, because I'm sure there are others who are having that issue as well. So give me 1 sec, see if I can get that turned on. Let's see here. It looks like it should be on. Caption certification. And if it isn't, I apologize, but I'm not sure how to get it turned on. I will try to do it, though, for future live streams, Brenda. So sorry about that. And thank you for being here with us in the chat tonight, though. Do appreciate that. And also Tall Stacker, glad you're here tonight, says, I'm going on vacation starting June 18th. Well, I hope you enjoy your vacation. And Onto It Aussie says, good day to Rob and Alaska's Last Frontier. And Chris Watson says, to Beachcomber, respect. JR says, some served in Vietnam and some are still there mentally. Yes, I'm sure. It's hard. It's a hard place to leave when those memories haunt you. Nomstead says, guy had a heart attack driving near Eagle River, went off the road into the willows. They closed in behind him and no one found him for 3 days. Thousands of people driving by a day. Oh my goodness. Well, and then one other thing that you have to be aware of too is that drug use is rampant in Alaska. And sometimes those who are partaking cause some of the accidents that we have here as well. I know there was a rollover accident um, in this area recently, and my understanding was that the individual took flight on foot and ran into the woods, and the police searched for him for a few days and were not able to find him either. So, um, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's sad that the trees here are so thick that yes, someone can go off the road and you might not see them. Um, it's very unfortunate. And here, there are no guardrails for most of the highways. It's just shoulder, and the shoulders have a steep drop off. And if something runs out in front of you, you know, if you're not swerving into the oncoming lane traffic, then you're going off that uh, shoulder there, which is dangerous. Iris says, I have a 50-year-old fig tree loaded, also 5 towering pecan trees, wish that she could share with everyone. Well, that would be fantastic. Especially the pecans. I love pecan pie. That's one of my favorites. And Steve says to Brenda Lee, closed caption doesn't work on lives. Will work when she puts up the video. So he's saying that when you watch it as a replay, then you can turn on closed captions. That makes sense. That does make sense. So thank you, Steve, for letting us know that. Onto it, Aussie says, Alone was going to ask you what made you chose to live in Alaska today, but seems you not long ago answered that one. Yes, it was definitely the freedom and the beauty of the state for sure. Absolutely. And something us Australians don't have, Anto Dossi says. There are so many places in the world that have lost their freedoms and are losing more and more every day. Even Americans are losing their freedoms without even realizing that they're giving them up without a fight. And so, it's one of those things that I think we need to protect for sure. And I wish the rest of the world could have the freedoms that we still enjoy today in America and those that we have lost already. And Rob says, sadly, but at the same time, a good thing that we have no neighbors within miles nor roads. If something happens, it's a heli, or if train, it's running, or if train is running, take the train to town. Yeah, and here, my understanding is that Flight for Life isn't always operable here. Sometimes it's weather that prevents them from flying. And if that's the case, then they'll get you to one of the hospitals, provided that the roads are open to get you to the hospital. But even at that, it could take an hour or better to get you to a hospital, driving faster than highway speeds. And that means that it probably took them an hour to get to you to begin with. So you're a couple hours out from a hospital here. And if you need to go into Anchorage or Fairbanks to get to a major hospital, that's not always an option. And Steve says, sorry for that. Sorry about that, Steve. I'm not sure what you're saying sorry for. Oh, probably for the closed caption thing. My bad. Norm says, I have heard that vehicle repair can be a challenge in many areas of Alaska. I would believe that to be the case as well, as far as, if you're needing parts. In fact, I know that that's a case. There's a channel that I have watched for years where they had come to Alaska, their vehicle broke down, and they had to wait days for the part to come into them. And that also, is a thing that happens quite frequently up here, is that you're on one side of the state and the parts are on the other side of the state, and it might be days before they make it to where you're at. And Chris Watson says to Beachcomber, I always loved partying with the RAF and RCAF during, I'm sure it's supposed to say Cape Thunder, when I was stationed in Alaska, or maybe it's Cape Thunder. And they always had a real beer in the coalition camps in the Mideast. And Steve says, Alone, have you had your car fuel system adjusted for your elevation? And that might cause the sputter. I don't know if they did that or not. When I first got here, one of the very first things I did was I took my car into the local mechanic in Glen Allen and asked them to get it set up for Alaska. So who knows if they actually did it or not. But that is something that I will ask the new mechanic to do for me for sure. So thank you for that reminder, Steve. I appreciate it. And there's Jim in Alaska's channel link. Please be sure to give Jim a visit. Jim says, Alaska's Last Frontier. Do you have any salmon berries in your area? Steve is good for reminding me to take a drink of water because he knows if I don't, I'm going to start coughing. And Numstead says, Alone, say it with me. I'm a Chichaco. Yes, I am. But the smartest one I know. Well, thank you, Nomi. I appreciate that. I'm a noob. I'm not going to deny it. I know someone called me greenhorn at one time, but I guarantee you I'm hardly to that level yet. I'm not a sourdough. I'm still really new. Chris says to Jared, the guilt of missing Iraq can be crippling. Life seemed easier when keeping your troops alive was more important than bills and PTA meetings. And there's Alaska Cut the Cord's channel link. So be sure to check out Alaska Cut the Cord. And JR says to Steve's Woodworking, the computer takes care of the altitude compensation with a pressure sensor, and she is under 2,000 feet. Yes. But I came from over, a mile high. So over 5,000 feet. So I wonder if the difference between, coming from Denver's elevation to sea level, essentially, or 2,000 feet above sea level, has anything to do with that or messes with it. And I agree with Steve. I'm old school too. Like in fact, I reached out to Adam over at Alaska Cut the Cord and asked him to help keep an eye out for an older pickup truck because I would really like to have a vehicle without all the electronics in it and that it still runs on a carburetor. I would love it because then I could work on it myself and not have to deal with electronics. I'm not an electronics girl. I don't understand them, and I'm afraid to touch the engine in my vehicle for the most part. And there is Big T's channel link, so be sure to pay Big T a visit and say hello to him. And hello, Robert Bartman. How are you doing tonight? Robert says, good evening, Alone, and to all of your subscribers who commemorated Memorial Day. Well, thank you, Robert. We appreciate you and appreciate you being here with us tonight. And Jim says to Stall Stacker, be prepared to be in awe. Yes, Alaska is breathtaking. If you haven't been here before, it will blow your mind. And Alaska's Last Frontier says the first place to visit is the Curmudge Inn. There you go. That's the best place to visit too. Beachcomber says that sounds about right, Chris. Dad was with the Maury Battalion. Sorry about that. My brain went blank there for a second. And Maury like pork. So the commander's pet pig disappeared into a hungy for Christmas. I guess the beer was good there too. That's a funny story. And Chris Watson says wrench bender to JR. C30, C130 wrench bender. Oh my goodness. JR says, sounds like it needs a new fuel filter or air filter. I had the air filter replaced along with some other work. So, and when I read the forums, everything led to the fuel filter. So I'm assuming that's what it is, especially considering that the last batch of gas that I got from a gas station that touts that they don't have any additives in their gas, which I shouldn't have stopped there because it ran horrible after that last fill up. So that tells me for sure that it's the fuel filter that needs to be swapped out. And Rob says, Princess bus ran someone over this past week. Oh my goodness. The person made it, but was hurt. Tour buses are nuts. Whew. That's a tough one. Yikes. Oh my goodness. Poor person and poor people on the bus, including the tour bus driver. Yikes. Alaska's Last Frontier says, speaking of cruises, there is a 2025 YouTube cruise in the Alaska Panhandle. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. And Matt says, drove them for 4 seasons. Matt drove the tour buses for 4 seasons, can confirm that many of those drivers shouldn't be on the road. Oh my goodness. And we got more military talk here. C-123, EC-121, C-118, and O-2B. And Chris is saying, you go prop jockey. Ashley says, JR, my dad went up in a lot of C-130s, but never landed in them. Paratrooper. And Chris said, did the chat feed freeze? If it did, it might have been because I punched the cable with my foot just a second ago. So I hope not, because we are hard-lined in tonight, folks. No DSL or Wi-Fi, I should say, tonight. And Charles Quick, says, Lowell Sasquatch migrate with the blueberry seasons. The Sasquatch hunters say so, so it has to be true. If you hear it on the internet, you know it's true, folks. And JR says, then spent 26 years flying private jets and got my license while in the Air Force. Congratulations on getting your pilot license, JR, even if that was when you were in the Air Force. It's still a really cool thing to have. And Weed Eater says, off to dinner. Take care. Good night, Weed Eater. Talk to you soon, and I hope you enjoy your dinner. Thanks for stopping in tonight. And JR says to Ashley Anderson, paratrooper. Chris Watson says, Herky birds took me to many places. They are great to sleep in. And Ashley says, JR 82nd JR 82nd Airborne. And respect. I used to love watching newbies fall like dominoes when C-130s took off. And hello, Shannon. How are you doing tonight? Shannon says, happy Memorial Day, all Americans. I'm Canadian. Drug use? Wow. I knew it was everywhere, but thought Alaska may be one place not. Unfortunately, it is everywhere. It is even in the rural communities that you're going to find drug use. It's just one of those things you just can't escape in today's world, unfortunately. And Ashley says to JR, he's paying the price now, hip and back issues. And JR is saying hello to Shannon. And candied pecans, Rob says, yes, my fave. And Ashley says, I have a few, but won't post here. Chris Watson says, giving up the liberties for security and ease means you never deserved your liberty, unfortunately. And hello, Colorado Pack Rat. How are you doing tonight? So glad you could join us. So nice of you to be here in the chat again. And Steve says to Ira, fresh figs are so good. I ate them for lunch when I lived in New Orleans. And Ira says, the pecans ripen here in October. Would be an honor to send you some. They are so good. I would love that if you could do that. That is awesome. I love pecans. Pecans, I would say, are one of my favorite tree nuts to eat for sure. And JR says, hello to Colorado Pack Rat. And JB says, checking in while watching 2 baseball games and the NASCAR race. Wow, you are busy, JB, but thank you for joining the chat nonetheless and having the live playing in the background. I appreciate that. And there is Nomi's channel link. Thank you for putting that up there, Rob. I greatly appreciate it. And Nomstead says, yes, need to think about how far services are up here. I had this experience firsthand recently when I had to rush a pup to the ER, and the closest place was 60 miles away. I made it in 50 minutes driving 90 miles an hour. That is it's a scary thing to be going through for sure, especially when you got a pup's life that's on the line and you're really concerned about how they're doing. That's one of the things here is like I don't even think that currently there's a vet in Glen Allen. There might be one in Valdez. I'm not sure. But to be honest with you, yeah, services of all kinds. When I needed to get my tooth worked on, the dentist, I had an appointment with the dentist in Copper Center. That dentist called out sick for the day. I tried to get a hold of the dentist in Glen Allen. That dentist was out for a week or better. I think he'd actually been out for a couple months at that point. And I finally got a hold of a dentist in Valdez. So either way, you're driving for an hour or better to get to a dentist in most cases. and when you live in these smaller communities, if you don't have one traveling into your village even. And JR says the computer compensated for the altimeter difference when you fired up getting it off the boat in Alaska. Awesome. That's good. The altitude difference, sorry, altimeter. Oh my goodness, my brain. And Rob says, thanks, Bill, for the plug for the inn. And Charles, how are you doing tonight? Charles says, have you seen Louis Prenicky site in person? I have not been to Dick Prenicky's cabin out at Lake Clark myself, but I would love to make it out there someday for sure. But as of yet, I've not seen it in person. But he is definitely one of the reasons that I came up here, because, you know, when that first aired in the 80s, man, was I watching that all the time. Anytime I could see it on PBS, I was sitting and watching all about Dick Prenicky. And Rob says, if spitting and sputtering, check the coils as well. Are you getting a code? So I did get a code that it was misfiring on the 5th cylinder. And I had all of the spark plugs and the spark plug connectors themselves replaced, because whoever owned the vehicle before me didn't know how to remove spark plugs. And it looks like they tried to pry them out with a screwdriver, and they jacked up the housing. And so I had all the housing replaced. I had all the spark plug wires replaced. I had all the spark plugs replaced. I've had a lot of work done on the vehicle. Even when I bought the vehicle, there were some codes that came on. And so there was some drivetrain work that needed to be done to the vehicle. So it's had a lot of work before and arriving here in Alaska. But I'm like almost 100% sure that if I just get that fuel filter replaced, that it will be a no-brainer and it'll be working just fine. But it also does need a tune-up, to be quite honest. It's ready for an oil change also. But that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Rob. And hello, Race in Alaska. How are you doing tonight? Says, I'm late to the party, but if the gas you recently purchased had some water in it, you may just need to put some heat in your gas tank. I might be doing that before my next trip into town, because this last one, it was really sputtering. And speaking of water in the tank, that's a good thing that you mentioned that, because I hadn't thought about it, but the gas did come from Glen Allen. So quite possibly. That is quite a possibility. So thank you for that suggestion. I'm going to go put some heat in it before I drive again. Oh my goodness. And there is Race in Alaska's channel link. Thank you for putting that up there, Bill. I greatly appreciate it. And JR says the fuel injection runs at about 50 PSI. A partially blocked fuel filter will drop the pressure to about 30 PSI, starving the engine for fuel. Yes, and it's only happening, the sputtering only happens on 2 occasions. One, if I'm going up a hill, almost guaranteed, unless I can keep from pushing on the accelerator. So if I can maintain the RPMs, it's good. Or if I go to pass somebody and I accelerate to pass them, guaranteed that the check engine light is going to start flashing. And so then passing people becomes a moot issue, because I wind up pulling off to the side of the road, turning the car off, turning the car back on, check engine lights off, and I can continue to drive. And sometimes it'll stop flashing on its own and just hold steady, but it's something that I definitely need to get corrected for sure. And I'm hoping that that 5th cylinder is not an issue, because the last thing I need to do is blow the engine. But I'm hoping that just getting the fuel filter replaced fixes the issue. And Alaska's Last Frontier says to Race in Alaska, when are you heading out to the Willow area? And Susan P says, alone, check your air filter. You might have a mouse nest in there. Happened to me a couple of times. That would be horrible. But yes, I have checked and replaced the fuel filter, but I do need to get underneath there again, since spring has sprung and the mice are out and about for sure. So thank you, Susan, for that reminder as well. And hello, Christina. How are you doing tonight? Glad to see you back in the chat. And Christina says, hello, Alone and everyone. Gnomestead says, Alone, you are doing amazing. I know people that have been here 10 plus years and couldn't live in the woods without a flushing toilet. To be honest with you, I'm kind of glad I don't have a flushing toilet. I was using the outhouse earlier because I really only use it in the spring and the summer months. And I was using it earlier and I was like, who would ever have thought that I would love an outhouse? But I do like using it, especially when you can, have the door open and see the breeze or feel the breeze and see the trees rustling as you're in there. It's kind of nice. TMI, I know, folks, TMI, I apologize. But yes, the outhouse is a nice treat. And Onto Adasi says, yes, agree. Never do the tourist thing on a public transport if you want to live. Oh my goodness. Alaska's Last Frontier has put up his channel link, so be sure to check Bill's channel out and see how his cabin built-in property is coming along. And Patricia says, alone, I had an exposition and had about the same issue. I had 2 coils replaced. Each cylinder has its own, wasn't too expensive. Well, I will definitely mention that to the guy that I'm going to have work on it this time and see if he can get that taken care of for me and see if maybe that is the issue. And Raisin Alaska is saying hello to Bill and to Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn. And Bill is saying to Shannon, it's actually bad here due to the long winters and the high unemployment rates. He's talking about the drug use. There is a lot of unemployment, and also there's a lot of homelessness, especially as you move closer to the populated areas as well, because of the fact that the unemployment rate is so high here and the cost of everything is so high here as well. So recently I was shopping on the other side of the state. I say other side, but it's only in the middle of the state. I was shopping in Anchorage, and I noticed that some of the things that I was buying over there are things that I had bought here on this side of the state, and it was literally half the cost. So depending upon where you're at, things are already expensive in the Anchorage, Willow, and Wasilla areas, and Fairbanks. But the further out you go, it can be 1.5 to 2 times or better in cost. So it really adds up quickly as well. And Linda says, good night, everyone. Hubby, less than 10 minutes from home. Time to grill that steak. Have a great week. You too, Linda, and enjoy your dinner. And Ashley is saying good night. And so is Rob. And Charles is saying good night, and to myself and to everyone else. Well, good night, Charles. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you being in the chat tonight, and I hope you feel better soon. Shannon says to Alaska's Last Frontier, what kind or are the usual fentanyl, meth, etc.? Yes, fentanyl is making an increase here in Alaska. There have been some fentanyl deaths in some of the bigger cities here recently that have been reported. And also meth is a huge issue here in Alaska as well. There is a website that you can go where you can see the police reports for different areas of Alaska. So you can go to alaskatrooperreport.com. I think it's .com, but the Trooper Report for Alaska will give you the daily police feed for all areas of Alaska. You can type in the location and you can type in the date range and for what you want to search, and it'll tell you any incidences that the police or the state patrol were called out on for that particular date range that you put in and location. And JR says to Alaska's Last Frontier homestead, not to mention boredom and cabin fever. Yes. And the availability of it, right? I mean, if you're already someone who's prone to drug use and you know it's available, chances are you're going to partake because it is readily available here. And Ashley is saying good night to Charles. And Sherry says, hi from Pennsylvania. Love your videos. Thank you, Sherry. And I appreciate you being in the chat with us tonight and the compliment. Thank you very much. And Alaska's Last Frontier says to Shannon, meth is real bad, but like anywhere, it's all up here. Yep. It's all here. That's for sure. And Alaska's Last Frontier is asking Sherry what part of Pennsylvania you're from. And JR is asking if I've got Guinness. Not tonight. Tonight I'm drinking just plain old water. So might have one with dinner though, that's for sure. And JR says, Sean has a video at the DP cabin. At the Dick Pernicki cabin. Oh, awesome. I'm going to have to check that out. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Sean James. Yes, Sean James does have a video about visiting the Dick Prinicky cabin. And Sean actually had two videos. So one on his Sean James channel and one on the Self Reliance channel. Both of them were really good. And Curmudgeon Inn says coil pack with that code. I have had that issue with my old Ford. Well, good to know. I will have that checked out for sure. So thank you both for that suggestion. And Rob says, let's see here. And you can put it in yourself unless it is one of those way in the back. It might be one of the ones way in the back. I'll have to look into it. And if I can do it myself, I would gladly do that. Save myself some money. Ashley says, I feel like I'm listening to an episode of Car Talk on NPR. Oh my goodness. The Click and Clack brothers. They're my favorite. Uh, oh my goodness. Chris Watson says, my '05 F-150 just blew the engine. I spent a crap ton of money changing plugs, coils, and purge valve, but the exhaust still blew out the catalytic converter, or the cat, and then an oil line seems to have blown fun times. Oh my goodness. Nothing better than having a blown engine. That's the worst. Trust me, I know. I've been there, done that. And Gnomestead says water and tank is a major issue up here, not just from gas stations, but humidity. We don't use ethanol, so a bottle of heat in your tank a few times a year helps. Well, thank you for that as well. I appreciate that. And Alaska's Last Frontier says, so your car sputters when you need more power in the fuel, or fuel in the engine. That would tell me that the injectors might not be working correctly. All sorts of things going on here. Wow. Thank you for that as well, Bill. I will have that looked at. And Rob says to Ashley, Click and Clack. Me and Nomis were talking about them the other day. Anytime I would go on a road trip, I would always put on the Taffet brothers and listen to them talk, because absolutely the best talk radio program, in my opinion. Absolutely love them. But then again, I might be showing my age. Shannon says to Ashley, haha, I know, I haven't had a clue. Oh my goodness. Jim in Alaska says, seems to me there are three types of people in Alaska: those who can't wait to leave, those who will never leave, and those who think it is the most beautiful place that they have ever been and would not live here. Yeah, well, I'm one of those ones that thinks it's the most beautiful place and I'm here and I'm not leaving, that's for sure. And nobody's laughing at Ashley. Chris says number 4 plug is a pain in the butt. Yeah, well, all those plugs are a pain in the butt when you don't know how to get them out, it looks like. You know, I'm not going to get started on people who try to be backyard mechanics but don't know how to work on vehicles, because I'm sure we've all had to do something on our cars that we may not have had the best idea on, but when you do more damage than good, it's hard. And Steve says, I'm laughing so hard right now. Susie pops the door open for the breeze. Oh my goodness. uh Brun says, Alone, how are you going with your wood stove? And you once said you were thinking of replacing it. What sort of stove will you be getting in the future? So I would like to get a wood cook stove. That's what ultimately that I would like to get for the cabin. Um, and right now the wood stove is doing just fine. It's holding up. Even though I did use the cement, the wood stove cement, to fill the crack that was on the top of it, the crack reappeared. So either I didn't put on a thick enough coat of the cement or not, but the crack is still there. So I'm being very cautious about, making sure that I'm not putting anything on there that might cause it to crack further. And it is holding up just fine, but I am anxious to get it replaced nonetheless. I just don't know what brand of wood cook stove that I'll eventually be going to. And as far as wood usage this year, I am trying to remember how much wood I had delivered last year. Last year, I ordered 9 cords of wood. There's a part of me that says I only got 6 delivered and I canceled the last 3 cords. And then there's another part of me that says I got all 9 cords delivered, but I'm down to about a cord, maybe a cord and a half of wood left. So if that is the case that I got all 9 quarts delivered, it means that I used more wood this year than I did last year, despite having the roof replaced. But also some things also changed. I took out the insulation from down below. And yes, while I do have the Reflectix up there, it may not be as insulating as well as I think it is, even though my feet are not cold on the floor where the Reflectix is. So there's that. I also didn't get the insulation in the windows as early this year as I did last year. So, and then the deep freeze that I went through in Christmas weekend. So lots of things going on with the wood there, but I'm hoping next year things mellow out a little bit and I'll be able to get a better estimate of how much wood I actually did use. I just need to go through and look at my receipts and find out how much wood did I actually have delivered. But that's a great question, Bren. Thank you for that. And Ashley is saying to Shannon, I know what they are talking about. Just think it's funny because it sounds like the radio program. If you have never heard of it, you are missing out. Yes. Click and Clat, the Tavitt brothers are on AM radio on NPR, and they are fantastic. I absolutely love the two guys. I know I've already said that, but they are hilarious. They feed off of each other's sense of humor quite well. And Mike says, am I late or is it over? You're late, but it's not over, Mike. We got about another hour to go. And I'm so glad that you made it. I've been missing you, buddy. Wondered where you've been. So thank you for being here tonight. And Gnomestead says, Jim, there is a fourth, those who can't afford to leave. Yes, that is true too. They say that when you're moving to Alaska, or not moving to Alaska, but yeah, if you're moving to Alaska, that you should have enough funds to be able to buy a ticket to come back home, because you might find that it's too expensive to live here or that it just doesn't work out well for you. So that's one thing that they do recommend for people planning a move to Alaska. And JR says, when you press down on the loud pedal and the engine stumbles, it will kick up a misfire code. So yeah, I'm not really getting a code unless, of course, I turn the key to get the code or put the code reader in. But the check engine light will come on. Sometimes it comes on and it just stays on. Other times it comes on and it's flashing and then it'll go off and stay off. Other times it comes on, flashes, and then stays on steady. But it doesn't happen every time I press on the gas pedal, because otherwise I would not be driving the vehicle. Again, it's only doing it if I hard accelerate or if I accelerate while going uphill. So, and Paul Davis says, Click and Clack was a classic car talk show. They could be hilarious. I agree. And JR says almost to Mike about it being over. And everyone's saying hello to Mike. And Mike says, oh, okay. Thanks, JR. And Gnomestead says Spice is big as well. I'm not sure what Spice is. If it's a drug, I don't know. I'm not up on that lingo. And then Rob has put up the channel link to his live at 5 p.m. on Friday night. Please be sure to check out Rob's live stream. I'm sure he would be more than happy to have you there and join along and all have his fun at his inn. And Matt says, Alaska's statewide unemployment rate is only trending slightly higher than that of the national average, but looking at the individual census areas, and some of them are scary high. Yes, I agree. Of course, you got to realize too that the majority of the population lives in the Mat-Su Valley. So in the Anchorage, Palmer, Wasilla, Willow area, that's where the vast majority of the state's population lives. So they're bound to have a higher rate than some of these other communities. But you also have to look at what the income levels are in Alaska. When you start getting into the rural communities, you're going to see that the average household income level is about $30,000 to $40,000 annually. That's household income level in many instances. And when you compare that to the national average for a household, that's right there at the poverty level. And part of the reason is that there's no industry out in these rural and remote areas. So that is part of it. But then there's also the part that there's a lot of people that are retired and that are living out here, and they're just living off of their retirement income. So that has a good portion to do with unemployment rates as well, because I'm sure that those that are retired are included in the unemployment also. And Mike is saying hello to Ashley, and Nomstead is saying very true to Matt's comment. Chris Watson says carry Narcan. I have it on my duty belt with my night trial gloves. Yeah, I think that's a good thing to have on you at all times, especially knowing the drug use up here and about. And hello, Mike. So glad you could be here. And Steve's working says wood stove creosote problem. Birch bark is full of oil. The more bark on your wood, the more oil you're burning. The birch you got this time around may not have been seasoned long enough. So the birch I got this time, I think one load definitely was not seasoned as long as I would like because it was very heavy. Um, and then upon receiving it, and then one other thing is that I am guilty of not stripping the bark off of my wood before burning it. In fact, I use the birch bark for tinder in the wood stove. But I also know that I'm gonna get up there twice a year and clean the wood stove. And I did speak to my contractor about getting up on the roof, and he has plans to install a cleat on my roof that would allow me access up onto the roof year round. So that'll be good. And then one other thing is that I do plan on installing some anchors and harnesses so that I am not apt to fall off the roof once I'm up there, because I know that is scaring people watching me go up there to clean the chimney. But yep, I do agree that the birch bark is probably part of my issue for sure. And Norm says, just a few days ago, the troopers in Seward stopped a person due to drunk driving. They also had various drugs, scales, and some cash. Fentanyl is a horrible drug. So I did hear one other thing about fentanyl recently, that the fentanyl coming up from Mexico is starting to be colored pink, like the color of my sweater. Not sure why they're coloring it now. Maybe to make it look like something else. I don't know. I have a hair that's fallen and is hanging on my face. I can feel sorry about that. But anyhow, they're saying that they're coloring it pink. And so if you're somebody who does cocaine, be careful, because if your cocaine has a pink tint to it, chances are that it has fentanyl in it. So I do pay attention to things that are being said around and on YouTube and what have you, even though I don't partake in any of it. It is something to be aware of, that if you are somebody who does partake in that type of stuff, that, it having been laced with fentanyl is a high probability these days, unfortunately. And Matt said, I had a couple of car projects I wanted to do today, but ended up doing computer stuff instead. Yeah, well, I always have car projects that I should be doing, but like I said, with the computers, I'm not apt to touch them. I'm so afraid of those computers. With my luck, I'll mess it up worse than it was to begin with. But I completely understand. Anto Adasi says to Matt, drugs and unemployment is bad since the lockdowns. Uh, most want most won't now work here in my area. Government pays people more to stay home than I make, and I risk my life every day just to work. Yeah, that is the thing. And it's a thing here in Alaska and in the United States as well, that the government is paying in people to stay home, and they're also not requiring you to um be out looking for a job in order to prove that you're going to eventually get off of the welfare, the financial aid from the government. So it's just going to be ongoing and ongoing, unfortunately, which means people don't have an incentive to go out and get a job. Susan's asking, are you ever planning on fixing up that huge greenhouse? Might work better than the electric fence route. So that greenhouse is falling apart. I was out there today and I was standing underneath it and the winds were blowing, and I was thinking, this is the last place that I should be, is standing underneath this greenhouse, because it has been dilapidated for quite some time. Excuse me, I found the Kenai hair is what it is. It has been dilapidated for quite some time, and the wood is rotten and the panels are all brittle and falling apart. But I do have plans to add a greenhouse, a lean-to, if you will, to the south side of the cabin. So that will be going in eventually. But I do have a garden video coming up for everybody. If I am able to, I will get it posted this week. If not, that'll be next week's video, and you'll get something else this week. But the greenhouse, that one needs to come down for sure. But I might be taking some things out of there and repurposing them if they're still in good condition for sure. And JR says, usually mounted on the frame forward of the fuel tank, Ford requires a special tool to remove it and due to the high pressure. That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. And Carrie Ann, how are you doing tonight, my friend? Carrie Ann says, sorry, I'm late. No worries, Carrie Ann. I'm sure you're listening when you can. So appreciate you being here and in the chat. Glad to see you. And Jim in Alaska says, no, ethanol is better since ethanol is hydroscopic. Well, good to know. I did not know that. And Steve's Woodworking says, Click and Clack and the Furniture Guys. Exactly. The Furniture Guys were great too. In fact, I was looking for an old video from the Furniture Guys, and I'm sure that they had to take it down because it was a video where they were showing how to condition your cutting boards with salt pork. And I'm sure they got in a lot of trouble, from people saying that cannot be sanitary. But, it's an old historical practice of using salt pork to condition your wood cutting boards. And so I was trying to find it. I can't find it. But if anyone has access to that video, I would love to see it. So if you have it, send me a link. I would love that. And JR is saying hi to Carrie Ann. And Matt says, onto an Aussie. Yeah, no offense. I always wanted to visit Australia, but you couldn't pay me to go there now. It's unfortunate, too, with all the freedoms that have been stripped away from Australians. And Clint says, loved Click and Clack and Paul Harvey back in the good old days. Yes, I'd forgotten about Paul Harvey as well. Definitely. And Rob says, yes, definitely to Steve's Woodworking and Homestead. Antoine Aussie says, agree to Jim in Alaska. If ever I get there, I'd be one who wouldn't leave because it's so beautiful. I agree with you. And Ashley says, Dewey, Suam, and Howe. Yep. And Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe is what I called Dewey's construction business based off of Click and Clack. Oh my goodness. JR says, and yes, I have that special tool for the Ford fuel lines. JR, I might be asking you to come fix my vehicle. Or asking the guy here to purchase one for sure. And Steve says to Rob, I have seen people extract the birch oil. It is some sticky stuff. Thank you, Mike, for the super chat. I greatly appreciate that. And says, sorry, I'm late. Well, there's no fee for being late, Mike, but I do appreciate the super chat nonetheless. That's funny. And Rob agrees that the birch oil is super sticky. And Nomi says, birch bark pitch is amazing stuff. I might have to actually try to get some produced. I've seen it made using a campfire and a couple of burners, but I haven't had a need to make any as of yet. Jim in Alaska says, I have the wood cook stove that my parents had when I grew up. It was my job to keep the wood cook stove in wood, and my brother's job was to keep it heating, the heating stove full of wood. Well, those were at least good tasks to have because it kept you prepared for all the work that it takes to keep a cabin heated up for sure. And Jim in Alaska, Rob is saying to you, very nice. We love our wood cook stove. I am very anxious to get the wood cook stove in, though I was thinking about it just recently because it has been rather cool outside, but also too warm to have the wood stove lit. And I was wondering if I'd be able to use the wood cook stove more in the summer months, knowing that it doesn't retain the heat quite as well as a wood heat stove does. And Nomi says, you were raised well, Jim. Antoinazzi says, yes to Matt in Alaska. Australia is beautiful, but these new changes are not good. Most of us are not happy. I think we feel your pain for sure, Antoinazzi, because we're watching from afar with all the things that Australia is going through. And Ira says, hello to Brooklyn if she is present. I have not seen Brooklyn in here tonight. So, but hopefully she'll watch this on the replay and see your hello, Ira. And JR says, there is a duo in the South named John Boy and Billy on the radio. Oh, I'm going to have to look them up. And Steve's Woodworking saying to Nomstead Off Grid, I have a newly big dead birch at the homestead. I will do an extraction. Oh, very cool. I'm going to watch. Very, very cool. Jared says, it's not a check engine light, it's a money light. That is for sure, because every time it comes on, it costs me. And Mike says, I swear I'll be late to my own funeral. Lol." You and me both. And Steve is saying hi to Mike, and Ashley is saying so true to JR's comment about being a money light. Raised in Alaska says hello to Bill. Willow is on my list to visit soonish. I'll reach out when I have time nailed down. And Mike says, hey, Steve, how's everything? And Steve is saying everything is good. Alaska's Last Frontier is saying, come to Petersville, raised in Alaska this weekend. I'm heading there for the weekend. And there is John in Alaska's channel link again for everybody. And Race in Alaska says spice is a synthetic drug. It sounds like, I know back in Colorado, they had one that was called potpourri. So maybe it's the same thing, that it was just a synthetic drug that people were using. And Brent says, Alone, how is the Japanese decor going? Have you started doing any of it, or just waiting to get the other things done? Do you have a to-do list? I have a very long to-do list. So I haven't even begun to attempt anything in the sitting room as of yet, because I've still been focused on the kitchen and on the sewing room. So once I get those two rooms out of the way, then I will start working in the sitting room. But I think that room is going to be last. I did attempt to acquire some chairs for the sitting room. And so I had made mention in the video where I showed the secretary that I bought about how the cost of furniture in Alaska will not only break your bank, but it'll break your heart. So I had found some chairs that I wanted to purchase. I reached out to the store to find out how much they were, because they didn't have a price tag on them. And that should have been my first clue, the fact that they didn't have a price tag. And so they said, well, they're on sale for around $4,000 till the end of the month. That was $4,000 per chair and ottoman, as a combo. And I was like, I can't even begin to afford that. And the email went on and said, but if you're not interested in those chairs, we have 3 others that are similar that we can sell to you. The first one was for about $1,000 more than that. The second one was for about $3,000 more than that. And the last one was about 3 times as much as the first chair that they had on sale. And I just, held my head down and shook my head and thought, what in the world? I was like, never mind. So I looked on Craigslist and Alaska List to find a couple chairs that I liked. And I did find some that I really liked, but unfortunately someone had acquired them before I had a chance to reach out to the person selling them. So every day I'm checking the classifieds to see if someone has a couple of chairs that I like. But eventually I'll get some chairs for that room. But right now it's just going to sit empty as it is. And I'll just sit at the dining room table or on the edge of the bed. And Mike says, all's good by me. Thanks. He's talking to Steve's woodworking. And Chris says, install snow eagles on your roof to break up the sheets of snow sliding off. Yeah, the cleats. Yep, that is one thing that we didn't do, and something that we've discussed doing as well. The snow coming off the roof really isn't an issue. It I kind of would like for it to stay up there as long as possible, though it will make getting up onto the roof more difficult when I need to get up there and clean the chimney off in the wintertime. But it does add a lot of insulation to the roof as well. So Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead says, falling off of your roof makes for good YouTube content. Yes, I'm sure it would. Let's hope I don't ever do it, though. There is Raised in Alaska's channel link for everybody. Be sure to check out his channel. And Raised in Alaska says, I'm already hooked up for the weekend trip with my daughter and a friend of hers. Well, I hope you have fun this weekend. And Iris says, I worry about the illegal immigrants bringing fentanyl for their livelihood. Yes, I think that's a big part of it, is that it is definitely coming across the border with some of the illegals that are coming in as well. And Mike says, we love that exciting content, lol. Insurance companies, not so much. Yeah, well, my insurance company doesn't actually cover any bodily damages on the property. It's only because of how far I live. This is something else people should take into consideration when they're looking at a remote cabin in Alaska. Depending upon how remote you are, you might not be able to get homeowners insurance. So I have what's called dwelling replacement insurance, meaning that they will only pay to rebuild my cabin, but they won't cover any of my property within the cabin itself. And there's no bodily harm or injury policy or binders on my policy either. So, and I'm not eligible for it. The other thing is because of where I live, that I'm required to have fire suppression systems in the cabin in order to maintain my insurance, meaning that I have to not only have fire extinguishers, but I have to have other ways of combating a fire as well. So a water suppression system, meaning that if the woods around my cabin were to catch on fire, that I need to be able to suppress those until help can arrive to help extinguish the fire. But it costs just as much as a homeowner's insurance policy would, if not more, depending upon, the size of your home and what have you. So one other thing to keep in mind is insurance on a remote cabin is not always what you think it's going to be. And Chris says the Chinese have introduced their regents for a new drug worse than fentanyl to the cartels. It's a real war that we are choosing not to fight back in. China is a huge threat. Yes. Yes, I agree that they are worse than the Mexican and the Colombian cartels right now because they're the ones that are producing all of these drugs, which are intended to kill Americans and other people in the world without any regards to what that means to the morality of it. And Clinton says, I'm old enough to remember when mentally ill people were put in hospitals, not in Congress. Yep, I agree. And not held up on a pedestal and paraded around town like they're the savior. And Nomestead, Alaska Off-Grid Channel Link. Thank you for putting that up there, Rob. Please pay Nomi a visit if you would. And Clint JR says, so true. Absolutely. Amen. Clint says, Mike. And there's Alaska's Last Frontier Homesteads channel link as well. So be sure to pay Bill a visit. And Ashley has given Clint a thumbs up. And there's our friend Bill Dixon over at the Punko Prairie. Hey, Bill. Bill says, hopefully you will never take a tumble falling off the roof alone. Wishing you blessings today, this Memorial Day, and always, always my sweet friend. Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. And I hope to God I never fall off the roof either. But I appreciate you being here with us tonight. And there is Alaska Cut the Cords channel link. So be sure to pay Adam and Phyllis a visit if you will. And Rob is saying hello to Bill Dixon, and there is Bill Dixon's channel link over at the Punko Prairie. Be sure to pay Bill a visit when you get a chance as well. And hello, Two Bears. How are you doing tonight? And you're asking, what did you miss? Well, you'll have to go back and watch the replay because I'm not going to go back over the last 2 hours. You missed a lot. You're going to have to watch the replay for sure. And Norm says, the reason for coloring it is to draw a younger crowd. Oh, interesting. They are also pressing them into various pill designs. Often when we entered someone's residence, we put gloves on to be safe. Paul was awesome. Yikes. Well, that, the younger crowd thing and making it look like something else. Yeah, that I could see that being the thing. I remember when I was a kid, and of course, speed was, the thing going around when I was a kid, and, came on, or acid rather, came on little paper things, and they were always saying, don't accept, a sticker or a little colorful design from anybody because, that's acid and it's not good and blah, blah, blah. So then it became the Pop Rock scandal and all of that. So yeah, I'm sure that, it's just to attract the children and the teenagers and the young adults. And that's really sad. Hey, Thad, how are you doing tonight? Thad Brown says, oh my God, that was old school. My grandma taught me that. Oh my goodness. I'm showing my age again. Let's see here. And JR says to Two Bears, you missed the $1,000 giveaway. Whoops. Did I let that slip? I forgot to mention that, Two Bears. Ernie's Cabin says, it was great seeing everyone. Take care and have a great week. You too, Ernie, and looking forward to seeing you here next week. Thank you for being with us tonight. And everyone saying hello to Two Bears and good night to Ernie. And Mike says, I have to penalize myself. Otherwise, I'll never learn my lesson. Lol. And Chris, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. And Chris says, again, thank you for the tribute. You are more than welcome, Chris. I appreciate you and all that you've done for our country and that you're doing for your own community there as well. You are quite the hero in my eyes. So thank you. And Rob says to open the windows. Is it getting a little dark in here? Is that why? I have a light on, but I'm sure that the light is starting to fade. And see if I do that, then it's a little bit bright. Hopefully I'm not too washed out for everyone. And Steve's We're Working says, nope, all I see is the cleaning cutting board with lemon and salt. Oh, see, that's what I saw too. But if we could find that video of theirs, I remember seeing it. And I'm going to put this paper back over the light because it's a little bit blinding on me. Sorry for the rustling noise in the microphone, folks. I apologize about that. But that video about cleaning the cutting board or seasoning the cutting board with salt pork, I want to try it, but I don't want to mess it up either. And maybe I should just look it up in some old history books, some old housekeeping books, that is. But thank you for looking, Steve. I appreciate it. And there is Our Simple Life's YouTube channel link. Be sure to check them out. That's Angie and David, formerly called Rutherford Roamings. And JR says, when I die, I want to be kicked out of an airplane wearing a Superman costume. Oh my goodness, what a way to go. And quite the imagery too. Oh my goodness. Steve says the splat will be awesome. And JR says to Chris Watson, are you back east? And Robert Bartman says, ISO Heat, the red bottle, is recommended for over the first product called Heat, which is sold in a yellow bottle. Isopropyl alcohol does a better job than methyl alcohol. Well, good to know. So I'll look for the ISO Heat. Thank you for letting me know that. And Mike is laughing at us. And Two Bears says, Miss Salone, I'll include my talent to control black flies and mosquitoes into my dowry. I'm trained for using it using a safe product. Your dowry just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Two Bears, I don't know about this. You're narrowing that gap there for everybody. Susan says, thank you to all military heroes for your service. Time to retire for tonight. Hang on, everyone. Or have a good night, everyone. Sorry. And same to you, Susan. Thank you for being here tonight. And yes, to everyone who is signing off here this evening. If you were served or have loved ones that served, thank you and thank them for their service. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you. And I appreciate all of you who have hung out with me tonight on this Memorial Night, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have plans on Memorial Day. So I thank you for being here with me tonight. And Rob says to JR, at least we have them make it a flying squirrel Superman suit so you can glide farther, lol. And Norm says potpourri is a name for a specific formula of bath salts. Oh, that was the other one. Yes, thank you. Bath salts eats the user up from the inside out. Oh my goodness. That is insane. And Rob says to Norm, bath salt is what the clown was in Miami. Was what the clown had taken in Miami and attacked the guy on the walkway and started to try to eat his face. It was horrible. Yes, I remember that incident with the bath salts, and he was like zombified, and they, tried to use the taser on him, and to no avail, because he became, so empowered by the bath salts. Ugh. Brent says, well, another fun chat. Thank you, Alone, for the fun and chat. Bye for now. I hope you have a great week. Bye, everyone, and keep safe and stay happy. Enjoy the good stuff wherever you are. Well, thank you, Brent. And again, thank you for your service, both in the military and in the police force there in Australia. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here with us tonight. And I hope you have a good night. And hello, Shakar. I love you too. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you joining the chat and watching the live feed. And Bren JR is saying good night as well. And I'm just going to go down the list here. Lots of people saying good night. And Norm says you are correct to Rob regarding the bath salts for the zombified face eater in Florida years ago. Got lots of good nights here for Bren. And Raphael, how are you doing tonight? Raphael says, hello, everyone. It's 10:52 p.m. Hot and humid down here in South Florida. I wish I was in Alaska. Well, we wish you were here too, where it's nice and cool. And I think right now it's probably about 48 degrees outside. It feels really, really good right now. It was cool earlier, but I've got the fire going. And so now it's just a nice, comfortable temperature in the cabin. Rob says, at least you can get that coverage from insurance. Oh, no. Are you not getting any insurance? That would be worse. Norm says dwelling only insurance. That is interesting, but I can understand. Yeah. And one of the, issues with it is because of the fact that it does take so long for fire services to get to these remote cabins. So that is definitely part of it for sure. And because there's no building codes out here is the other reason. So they can't be held liable or responsible when homeowners can build to whatever way they want. And it doesn't have to conform to any regulations. And Mike says, wow, they really like to cover themselves up there, don't they? The insurance companies, I mean. Yep, exactly. And Steve's Woodworking says, when going on a roof, take an air hose or an extension cord with you. They always get caught on something. Oh my goodness. Chris Watson says to JR, I unfortunately am, Becky's that is, like a moron. I moved back to Maryland after active duty because I was engaged and work in Idaho was tough to get in the mid 90s. I hope to move back to Alaska someday. Loved Ellison. Well, Alaska would be honored to have you here, Chris. That's for sure. And Alan Cook, how are you doing tonight? Alan says, what is the cost of living up there? Well, it depends upon where you live and what amenities you want. One of the nice things about Alaska is because the state is so big and you have such a variety of different ways that you can live up here. You can live like I'm doing, here in a remote cabin. And if you are able to buy your property and your cabin outright, that's going to save you a lot on your cost of living. Up here, like I said, in a lot of these rural communities, you have people that are living on $30,000 a year or less. I know some people who strictly live off of the pipeline fund dividend, which averages, I think, around 1,500 to maybe $3,000. I heard last year because it had some additional funds added to it, and any additional funds that they can make from trapping or things like that. So you can live very cost effectively up here, but they're also hunting to fill their larders with food. They're foraging for their food. And then, of course, they're off grid, so they don't have any utility bills. And, they may be getting their water from a spring. So it just really depends upon how you want to live. But then there are other people who are living, in, say, Anchorage or Juneau, where the cost of living is definitely way more expensive because they're in a municipality where there are services that they're being tied into, and things are just expensive in general up here. So the cost of gas right now on, I think in Palmer, I think was, I don't remember, maybe $3.89 a gallon. And then over on this side of the state was $4.74 a gallon right now. So if that gives you an idea of how much things cost up here, just the cost of gas alone is expensive still. And Steve's Woodworking says, will she get it? Yeah, I got it. I got that joke because trust me, I'm always getting a hose or a electric cord caught in everything. They're always tangled and getting caught on something. So that joke didn't go over the head. Not tonight. And Bill says Bill at Alaska's Last Frontier Homestead says, I got to go past my bedtime, work in the morning. Ugh. Well, I feel sorry for you, Bill, that you got to get up and go to work, but thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. And Bill, everyone is saying good night too now. And Rob said, nice old man. And see you, Bill, from Matt. And JR says 6 years in the United States Air Force trying to get to Alaska every year. Only had one fuel stop in Anchorage on the way to NAM. Well, that's not long enough to see Alaska at all. We'll have to get you up here for sure, JR. And Rob says, good night, old man. That one came back a second time there. And Carrie Ann says, glad you're so very careful on that roof and that you are coming up with safer way to climb that roof. I care about you, my friend, and Kenai. Well, thank you, Carrie Ann. I know that I tend to scare you quite a bit with some of my antics. So yes, trust me, I plan on installing some safety features for sure. And Big T over at Rustic Log Cabin Life says, Cubby's up in Sunshine, 30 miles north of Willow, has Haagen-Dazs for $6.50 a pint, but town site is $9. Doesn't make any sense. Nope. Just like I showed that things in Barrow, which has to have everything either flown in or barged in, had some things that were cheaper than Willow, or I'm sorry, than Wasilla had at the grocery store. It doesn't make any sense. And then it doesn't make any sense why gas is cheaper in Fairbanks and Delta Junction than it is in Glen Allen, other than Glen Allen has no immediate competition, so they get to charge whatever they want, is my take on it. So, and Chris Watson says complacency kills. I agree. Absolutely, which is one of the reasons why I'm trying to be very cautious about getting up on that roof. Mike says, hey, happy Memorial Day to everyone. Happy Memorial Day to you too, Mike. Thank you for that. And Mrs. Smith, how are you doing tonight? So glad you could be here. Says hello, alone and everyone. John says, sorry, I dozed off. I need to cook dinner. Good night, everyone. Good night, John. And thank you for being in the chat. I appreciate it. Even if you have the live chat playing in the background while you were taking a nap. And Rob over the convention is says, open the windows was to keep the house cooler when using the wood cook stove in the summer. Oh, yes. Yes. Now I get what you're saying. Well, luckily now I can open a window on the main level. Before I only had the two upper windows. So now I have screen doors that I can operate and also that front window. So yes, thank you for filling me in on the comment there. And Two Bear says, missing the giveaway is the story of my life. Oh my goodness. Chris says, yeah, Alaska Air Command was an exclusive club back in the day. I heard I was up there most of 92 through 96 during the PACAF years, Pacific Air Force years. I'm assuming is what that means. And hello, Eric. How are you doing from Eagle, Colorado? I have a family in Eagle as well. I love Eagle. It is such a beautiful little community. So thank you for being here, Eric. And Chip says, good night, alone. Well, good night, Chip. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate it. Glad you could make it. And JR is saying hello to Eric. And Chris Watson says, I'm not sure if Pacific Air Force is now the Indo-Pacific Air Force. Norm says, Steve's woodworking. You are so right about the air hose. And Steve says that the air hose drives him nuts. And Ira says, good night to everyone. Good night, Ira. I hope you and your mother sleep well tonight. And we'll see you next week. JR is saying to Chris, I spent 3 hours with a colonel in charge of search and rescue when I headed up a private search and rescue in 2009, gathering intel from the Air Force search. Wow. That's quite the ordeal. Patricia says, good night, everyone. I enjoyed the chat as always. Everyone be safe. Well, good night, Patricia. Thank you for being here tonight. And I hope that you have a good rest of your evening as well. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And everyone is saying good night to Patricia. And Rob says, cannot get a policy out here as we have no fire service due to no roads. So you can't even get a dwelling replacement insurance policy. Rob, I don't know who you're trying to go through, but I use Umalac as my insurance carrier, and that's who I was told to use to get the dwelling replacement policy. So I will send you an email with their information. So in case you're not familiar with them, but that's who I use. And Chris Watson says, JR, I used to live for SAR. I was in the Civil Air Patrol as a teen and found a few downed birds. Wow. Search and rescue. Search and rescue is SARS. Sorry, folks. And JR says, when I win the lotto, I will hire you to do my security in Alaska, to Chris. And Chris says the Alaska Air National Guard has a pararescue squadron in Anchorage. There you go. You both could come up and have work. Rob says 389 this past Friday in Talkeetna at the Spur for gas. Yep. And a lot of the gas up here is one grade of gas. You're not going to get, medium or whatever. A lot of times you're just going to get one grade. That's all there is. And Antarasi says, see you, Bill, because Bill signed off for the night. JR says, eggs here are now $2.79 for an 18-pack. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that the egg prices throughout the nation have dropped dramatically from the massive high prices that they were paying before or charging before. So I'm glad to see the egg prices are down, but it's very curious as to how they could spike and then drop so quickly. Two Bears says, hi to Kenai. I hope life is treating you great. He's doing pretty well considering he's snoozing away behind us, lucky pup. And Rob is saying, JR, they cost me food. I'm a chicken tender, lol. JR says, I will wash and fix your Ford, smile. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you'll have to wash it. One time I took my Ford, or not my Ford, my Jeep. I had an old Jeep and I took it in to get it serviced. And the serviceman said, if you do the full service on your vehicle, I'll throw in a car wash for you. And I told him, deal. I said, because you were getting the worst end of the deal. I hadn't washed that Jeep in forever. And after he got done with it, and he said, yeah, I think I got the worst end of the deal. He goes, but your Jeep is now serviced and clean. Oh my goodness. I felt like I was getting the treat of a lifetime, getting the Jeep washed. And Nomstead said, Rob, just another wall on the coop. Chop, chop. And Jim in Alaska says, fuel seems to be higher in Glen Allen for some reason. Eureka Roadhouse was $6.75 a gallon last week, $3.63 a gallon for diesel today in Palmer. Yikes. Yeah, Eureka Roadhouse is another one that has no competition whatsoever because they're many miles away from the next gas station. So they're halfway between Palmer and Glen Allen. And so both Glen Allen, which has nothing near it, and Eureka, which is the next furthest one over on the Glen Highway, both can charge pretty much what they feel like. And Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn says, to Nomi, framing will take a day. I'm waiting on the plywood. Matt says to Rob, that's cheaper than it is here in Utah right now. Yep, that's sad too. Nomstead says, I made $6,000 last year. If I can do it, so can anyone. That's right. There are people, like I said, who live on very limited means, and yet they're having some of the best life that one can hope to have because Alaska is so beautiful, and you do have so many different opportunities to forage and hunt and live up here, which is incredible. JR says to Rob over the Curmudgeon Inn, that is near the top of my backwoods cabin. Oliver Jackson says, good night, alone and all. Good night, Oliver. Thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you next week. Norm says, how is solar doing in Alaska? Widespread or just localized? EVs must have had a hard time charging. So yeah, electric vehicles, I think, would have a really hard time up here because of the fact that you have such great distances between one location and another, and then with the extremely cold temperatures, that would have a hard time on those electric batteries and charging systems. And the solar up here, some people claim to have good success with it. I think it depends upon where you're at, of course. The further north you go, the less success you're going to have because they have 6 months of complete darkness with no sunrise or sunset. And here on my property, I've not actually tried solar, but I know people in the area that have solar, and some of them complain with the same thing that I was wondering about, which is that the sun barely coming above the horizon doesn't give you enough solar charge to be able to run maybe a full home's worth of appliances during the day. And then with it being so cloudy for most of the winter, and very short days, 5 hours on average of daylight, that it also makes it hard to use solar in these areas. So I think it really just depends upon where you're at and what your sun conditions are like here in Alaska. And Gnomestead says, in my opinion, homesteading is about living with little to no money, not off of a paycheck and flush toilets. Yep, I agree. And Steve's Woodworking says good night to Oliver. And Chris says, on a brighter note, I introduced my 3-week-old granddaughter to dad jokes today. Oh my goodness. She had lion booties on. So I asked if they were her main shoes, and told her that she should take pride in her shoes. Oh my goodness, too cute. Absolutely cute. And Rob is telling Norm, we have been on solar since March, turned on Jen for 3 hours twice due to clouds and rain. There you go. And Ashley says, Nomi, a bucket can be good enough. I agree. So in my cabin, I do use a honey bucket, and a diverter so that I can keep the fluids away from the solids. And I have no problem with it. I cover everything with ash, and that keeps the odors at bay, if you will. And then in the spring and summer, I do use the outhouse. But it is really, really not a problem to do that whatsoever. And Lisa's asking, hello, Lisa, thank you for being here tonight. Lisa's asking if I can just talk to you guys. I could, but I think I would stumble. I would probably run out of things to say. Yeah, so I'm the reason I read the chat is because I'm actually hoping to come across questions about my life or life here in Alaska. So if you have something specific that you would like to ask, please ask away. And unfortunately, I don't have a way of having a moderator who can throw up the comments that are just questions. So I'm having to go through and look at all the questions, and because there are so many of them that are non-related to me specifically, it would take me forever just scrolling through to come up with the ones that might be. So I apologize if the live stream is a little bit skewed or seems off because of A, being the holiday and there's a lot of side chatter. But yeah, if it was just me talking, I would be sitting here going, yeah, I don't know what to talk about, which is unfortunate, but that's truly how I believe it would be. And Steve's Woodworking says, what did you do to chase Dewey away? I don't know, but she's long gone, it seems, these days. It's actually that Dewey has gotten a nighttime gig. So Dewey, my friend, is not able to be here in the chat tonight. And the other Dewey has run off with Sasquatch. I'm sure of it because I haven't seen that Dewey in quite some time now. But if I do see Dewey, I'll be sure and let him know. And Nomstead says, Rob, one arm, no plywood, no excuses. Oh my goodness. And yes, JR says Dewey is working nights for a while. Yep, she's gotten a nighttime gig for sure. No excuse, Steve says. Rob says, I do not have the pallets laying around that you do. Unfair advantage on getting that chicken coop built. Colorado Pack Rat Prepper says, I bought the 5 dozen box of eggs at Walmart for $6.73 a couple of days ago. Wow, the prices really have dropped for sure. Onto it, Aussie says, lol, my eggs are free, but the agent is coming, so I may have to start buying again if they evict my girls from the coop. Oh no, that's not good. I hope your chickens don't get evicted. JR says Glen Allen gas stations have to put water in the fuel, hence the extra cost. Oh, my goodness. Two Bear says gas is cheaper in Alaska than here. New York State sucks. Well, that's unfortunate because, yeah, gas here is always expensive. And Steve says to Entourage Aussie, those darn agents Rob says to Two Bears, New York has always been high on everything. I lived in the city and hated it. Yes, I could imagine. New York is quite the place for sure. I've been there once and no offense, but I have no desire to go back. Antodasi says, I agree, Steve, regarding the agent. And Jim Alaska says, I'm off to bed. Old man will be up at 4 a.m. if anyone needs anything. Lol. Well, sleep well, Jim, and I hope you get a full night's sleep because 4 a.m. is awfully early. But thanks for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. And again, congratulations on your new property. Steve's Woodworking says, I would say more, but trying to keep it clean. Appreciate that, Steve. And of course, we have our good nights to Jim. And Julianne says, my nephew passed from cocaine laced with fentanyl coming up 2 years in July. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Bad memories. He was in an induced coma. He was in an induced coma for a week. Yikes. Poor kid. I'm so sorry to hear that. Drug use is hard enough as it is, but then, when something like that happens, it's such a tragedy. Chris Watson says, too much information time. I must take a shower. I'll be listening though. Thanks for the visual. And Steve's Woodworking said she's a dodo. I hope you're talking about Dewey and not me, but you might be. And I would have to agree with you, actually. JR says some RV parks in Walmart under the bright parking lights and it charges the batteries. Yep, that makes sense. Anything you can do to get those solar batteries charged up. Good night, Julianne. Thank you for being here, and I hope you sleep well. Appreciate you joining in the chat. Gnomestead says, fuel is fuel. Grades are added at the pump. Yep. Two Bears says, Kermudge, I live close to Canada, and the prices are outrageous as most everybody is broke. I think that's throughout the nation that most everybody's broke these days. Mike says, so now the egg shortage has ended too. I guess all the chickens signed a new contract to lay eggs a day each. Follow the money, folks. There's where you'll find your truth. I agree. It's always a paper trail will lead you to the end result. And Ashley is saying good night, Julianne, and sorry for your loss. And JR says to Steve, should we ban her for saying that I'm a dodo bird? Oh my goodness. Chris says, don't worry, this is a chat, hence interactive, not a podcast. Yep. Yep. I definitely advertise this as a chat, as a hangout as well. So, and Rob says, yeah, that is what I ask. That is why I ask questions in my lives. Yep. It's hard because you do run out of things to talk about. And honestly, I am surprised I'm able to put out a video every week, to be honest, because sometimes I think I'm just a normal person. So, yeah, but I do get where you're coming from too, because I'm sure sometimes it can be a bit odd to just hear the chat being narrated. So, hello, MSNBC says you could ask those with a question to start a sentence with QQQ. Yep, that makes sense for sure. Might help me to pull out those questions easier. So thank you for that suggestion. And thank you for being here and in the chat as well. And it says, therefore, you can spot quickly. I agree. So maybe I'll put that out next week when we start the chat, because this one is about ready to end here in just a few minutes. So with that being said, I do want to thank everybody who was here tonight. I want to thank everybody for the super chats, Mike and Chris. I really appreciate that. And I also want to thank each and every one of you who have been in the service or have had family members or friends that served. And, please pass along all of the condolences for those that have lost their lives fighting in wars to protect our freedoms and the world, and also to thank them for their time and their service and their time away from their loved ones as well. So I also want to say thank you to all of you for being here in the chat, and those of you watching at home. And if those of you who may have just joined in, do remember that you can watch this on a replay. And I do apologize that the replays have so many commercial breaks in them. I just rewatched last week's one, and there were so many commercial breaks in there. So I do apologize about that altogether. I wish I could amend to those, but they don't let me on those whatsoever. So other than I guess I could just not monetize them. But yes, apologies about the commercials there. So thank you again to everybody. So good night, Dixieland. Appreciate you being here. And good night, Norm, who does have a question here. Says, how do you keep a schedule on when things should be done? Shopping, maintenance, house, etc. Well, I am guilty of using mental memory on when things should be done. I run my brain basically off of a calendar, and I know, okay, it's been a week since I've done this, or it's been, it's April now, I need to do this, or it's October now, I need to do this. That's typically how I do things. And then when it comes to shopping, since I do the majority of my grocery shopping twice a year, it's the same thing. First chance I get to leave the cabin in the spring, I make a grocery run. And before I head in to know that I'm going to stay on the property during the wintertime, I'll make that last grocery run of the year. So that's how I'm making those schedulings, is all in my head. I do all my bookkeeping. Well, not now that I have a business, but my personal bookkeeping, I do all in my head too. And it drives people absolutely crazy because I always say, what are you going to do if you get bonked on the head? Lose it all, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I'm guilty of doing it all up in the old noggin. So thank you for asking that. And No said, I want to thank you for being here as well. And Nomi says, I got a full charge today on my batteries today. It's at 90% clouds. Depends on your power usage. I use very little power. Yep, I think that has a lot to do with it as well. And Clint, thank you for being here as always. And Clint says, it is an open Q&A and general conversation. I think a lot of us enjoy it. I enjoy it like it is. Well, thank you, Clint. I appreciate that. And I would assume so, considering many of you are back week after week to hang out with me here on Monday nights and once a month on Saturday nights as well. So thank you. And Steve, thank you for being here as well, who also agrees with what Clint said. Nomstead says, it's working. Why change the format? Thank you for that. And Rob, thank you for moderating the chat for me as well, and says more thumbs up, folks. Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. And Robert Bartman, thank you for being here. Good night to you as well. And says, I can finally get by garden plants in the ground tomorrow. We've been having frost warnings, so the seedlings are growing out of their 12-ounce cups. Yes, I know the feeling for sure. And I will have a garden video up for everybody as well pretty soon here. And Two Bears says, good night, everybody. Good night, Two Bears. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And again, Mike, thank you for being here. And Ashley, I appreciate you being here every time. You are awesome. As well as Steve, I appreciate that. And Chuck Brown, thank you for being here and being in the chat. Chuck says drugs are evil. I'm a beer guy. I'm a beer girl, and I agree. Drugs are evil. Good night, Clint. Thank you. Good night, Nomi. And good night, Anto Adasi. I really appreciate you being here tonight and in the chat week after week. It means a lot to me. Hello, Heather. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Sorry I'm catching you on my way out, but nonetheless, I hope you have a good night. And Colorado Pack Rat, thank you as well. I appreciate you being here week after week, and also that you are here tonight. And Colorado Pack Rat says, I've seen some chats that have had questions start with question marks and in capital letters. Well, that would help too. That would definitely help to call them out for sure. Matt, I appreciate you being here. And it says the Braves lost, but Miss Alone's stream kept me entertained. Cheers, fam. Well, cheers to you as well, Matt. And thank you again for being here. And Carrie Ann, I appreciate you being here as well. And I'll get back to you on your messages. I know I owe you a couple responses, so be on the lookout for those. And thank you again for coming in tonight, as well as Raised in Alaska. I appreciate you being here with me tonight. And Raphael, I appreciate you being here and in the chat also. And says, I am learning more in this chat about Alaska than I did learn when I visited. Thank you. You're welcome, Raphael. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you joining. So with that, I'm going to sign off tonight. And I do want to say the last couple thank yous here. One, to JR, thank you for moderating. I do really appreciate your help with everything that you helped me with. You are a blessing to have in my subscriber feed and members. So thank you, JR, for everything that you do. And also I want to say thank you, 1968 sourdough for being here as well. And he says, good night, bear tags. It's garden time and fish are coming. Love y'all. Well, have a good night to everyone. Remember, you can watch this on the replay and I'll see you next week. Thanks again, everyone.